in the Gala show.
Yeah,
the most important bit.
The only little lamb that ever exists.
The
sheep.
prototype, and only because it was too perfect, and you made it for me.
It was too perfect.
And of course, that's the voice of one of my guests, who you've heard before, Gala Avary. Welcome, Gala.
Hi, I'm back.
And Gala only does this show, so you're going to hear
do
her.
any other show.
Except her show, of course, the Gala show.
Yes.
And she's the producer and bon vivant of Video Archives podcast as well. And then, of course, we have Witch Us, which is actually appropriate, Witch Us, because Rich Johnson.
Witch Johnson.
Witch Johnson is a horror aficionado and expert and writer par excellence about the film stuffs. And you do a lot for a variety of places. Fangoria.
Second Sight. A little bit of Arrow. Mainly interviews.
101 reissues.
101. Yeah, Animation Magazine's a big one as well, to be honest.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's actually how he and I met. Was he did my Fangoria interview?
Oh, right.
Yeah, that's how we met. So.
That's really cool.
And now we're on a couch together at Craig's house.
Yeah. And we've gone from animation to trash.
Well, excuse me. I'm sitting right here. Thank you very much. Yes. But we're talking about Manhunter, though. So
that's not trash.
So excited.
This
not
is class.
Trash.
This is class.
It really is. And so I rewatched it today. I know Gala did, and we had certain reactions to it. I have a powerful reaction to this movie every single time I've seen it. And the first time was back on 4x3 horrible cropped DVD, not VHS. I thought I might have seen it. My brother was a big proponent of this film. And he said, I think he probably said something. Let's assume, well, you like that To Live and Die in LA. You like this Manhunter, but which turned out to be true. Remind me about Alex Cox later. I got a couple things to say about his assessment of the film.
Oh, there's plenty to say about Alex Cox.
Plenty to say, and thank you, Alex, for being on
also
there.
in hindsight, there's plenty to save and to do with.
Like, I'm a big fan, read his book, but before we get into him, so I saw it there, and then I finally, when it came out on Blu-ray or even widescreen DVD, got the Shot Factory Blu-ray, and then saw the director's cut and the theatrical cut. To let you know, Gala, I'm a theatrical guy on this one.
I am a theatrical girl always, so...
I thought you'd be happy to hear that.
I am very happy. But what's the difference between the theatrical and the director's cut for this?
Well, okay.
Do you want to go there now? Or are we going to park it? Or
let's park that because
things.
We'll
we
park
can talk about director's cuts.
We'll talk about
it.
We will get there. But first I want to go through everyone's history with the film. Yeah. And then after a number of viewings on Blu-ray, I remember watching it, then seeing it at the New Beverly at midnight, which was perfect. It was a good screening. There was no problems. Not that there ever is at the New Bev, but it was great. It was perfect. And then seeing it at midnight is great.
What year are we talking?
Sometime after opening up after the pandemic. So it's tricky with that. You know what I mean? It's very hard. 21, because 22, I was in London. Right. So now I can finally remember that. So 21. Then I went to Massachusetts a couple weeks later. Mom, I got a movie you got to see. And she was halfway through. She's like, does he get him? I go, I can't tell you that. And she was like, oh my God. So she had a similar reaction to King of Comedy. And I forced her to watch these things. So that's my history with it. Oh, wait. And then I got to see it at the Arrow in 70 millimeter with Michael Mann in attendance.
Wow.
And that was, but then I watched it again, not that long after that. By the way, it was his own personal print. So he was there all day. Like, I don't know, I think the bulb's a little low, that kind of stuff. So how about you, Gala? And then we'll go to Rich.
I saw this movie, I think, God, was it the first time this year or last year? It was very, very recent that I saw it. And I can't remember if I watched it for a Gala show episode, which I might have, because I did end up referencing it, I think, talking to several people.
Well, and also you said it on the top 10 discoveries of the year, which somehow omitted To Live and Die in LA. I'm not sure. Maybe you got confused, but that's okay.
I don't know. I might have been confused. Don't call the police on me.
All right. But that's your one out.
Then I did see it last year. Then I saw it 2023.
Yeah.
And it could have also been someone in my film club could have forced it on me. I have shout out to this guy, Ramon, in the Philippines, who is the hugest Michael Mann fan.
I've heard about Filipino Ramon.
Yeah,
I have not.
Well, I'm shouting him out right now, but he is like the biggest Michael Mann fan.
Yeah.
And when I told him like I was going to rewatch Manhunter right now, he was like, oh my God. He also loves Twilight. So that's a different story.
That's great.
Though.
You know, I've never seen Twilight, and because you love it so much.
Can we get through any recording
without Twilight?
Without Twilight?
I don't think so.
We can't. Every time I'm going to bring up Twilight. I'm a girl, okay? Listen, it was like what I was watching at the time. But Ramon like loves Manhunter. I think he was the one that passed it to me, told me you finally have to watch it. I actually did not know what the movie was about when I first watched it. I kind of just went in blind. I did not know that it was a Hannibal Lecter story. I was so excited when I found out because I love serial killers. I love crime movies like this.
Yes.
And so I was just enthralled, and then I got to rewatch it again. For this podcast, I was thinking, do I really need to rewatch Manhunter? I just saw it. Yeah, I needed to rewatch it because it is so good. It deserves a rewatch. It should go without saying, if you have not seen Manhunter and you're listening to this, what are you doing? Go watch Manhunter before you listen.
Exactly. You have to, just like in the To Live and Die in LA one where we gave you a warning. So if you did, who knows which comes out first, probably this. Just watch the movie. Put this on pause and make sure to listen to it like 4 or 5 times. But yeah, because especially if you don't know what it's about, even if you know that it's a Lecter film, and maybe you've seen Red Dragon. I wanted to watch that before this, did not get a chance. Feel fine about it. Rich, what's your... Oh, and before I get to you, Rich, just to echo what you were saying, there's never too many times with this movie, which I thought there would be. But then when I watched it 3 times in that December, I thought I might have a mental illness, which I do. And we found out later exactly what it was. But then it's still good, even when you're medicated. Rich, how about you? I mean, what's your history?
Drome. For a lot of the films that I discovered when I was a teenager, it was always Movie Drome.
Describe that for the people.
So Movie Drome was a introductory style series that ran from the late 80s, maybe to the mid 90s. It started with Alex Cox. It ended with Mark Cousins, and it was the gateway for a lot of cinephiles, and it was almost a major part of our cinema education in the UK was Alex Cox and Mark Cousins delivering these films on, I think it was a Sunday evening, if I recall.
Oh, okay.
Don't quote me on that. And it was just an important series because the films that he was bringing and curating were things that you would never have discovered. Mm-hmm. And whether you continued watching that film or not directly after his introduction, or you parked it and then remembered it from when you went, to rent VHS. Yeah, that's been my introduction for so many films, and Manhunter is one of the clearest memories I have of watching what would have been considered, or still is probably considered, a cult movie.
Sure,
I think it goes beyond that, though. To be honest.
Beyond cult?
I think, it's less of a cult movie than, because of Michael Mann attached to it. It's got, it's the production value of it.
It's phenomenal.
We'll go into that. But Alex Cox, as most people will know that I am sure listen to this podcast, filmmaker, and he is one of the best examples of indie filmmakers out there for many, many reasons. Mm-hmm. And in the way he makes films, the way he sees other people's films,
the way he sees other people's films,
and we'll get into that
issue for
because me. I think as a 15-year-old, maybe watching Movie Drome for the first time, being introduced to Manhunter, I would have just lapped up everything he said about that because I didn't know it from Adam.
Sure.
So to go into that movie completely blind, I didn't know who Hannibal Lector was. I probably wasn't even familiar with Silence of the Lambs. They obviously timed it because I think it was 91. They put it on,
and I think he mentions it in the intro.
But I still wasn't that familiar with the character. And Silence of the Lambs was exploding. Yeah, it was everywhere. It was like Crocodile Dundee and Pretty Woman. That was like they were like the 2 main rentals in the late 80s, and then you got to like Silence of the Lambs, and that became the next big thing.
Everyone had to see it.
Everybody rented. Yeah, and if you hadn't seen Silence of the Lambs, there was something wrong with you. I mean, even my dad watched Silence of the Lambs, and he can't stand those types of films.
You can hardly fail to have heard about a film called Silence of the Lambs, directed by Jonathan Demme. It's the story of a hideous but charming serial murderer named Dr. Hannibal Lector, played by Anthony Hopkins, and an FBI agent, played by Jodie Foster, who uses the incarcerated Lector's homicidal instincts to track down another serial killer currently at large. What you may not have heard is that there is another film in which the mad former psychiatrist and bon vivant Lector appears. It's called Manhunter, and it was directed by Michael Mann in 1986. Comparisons being invidious, let's make some. Jonathan Demme is a very good director who keeps improving. Michael Mann is the creator of Miami Vice and an incorrigible faddist. Demme's film is tightly plotted, Mann's is not. Demme's film has a real sense of place, and so does Mann's. Note the use of the High Museum Atlanta as the location for the high-security mental hospital where Lecter is kept. Manhunter is full of LA stereotypes like the burned-out big city cop who lives in a penthouse on the beach and keeps a Learjet waiting on the runway. He's more like a TV producer than a cop, in fact. Mann's hero is played by Willam Petersen, essentially reprising his role in To Live and Die in LA. Both films have their share of high technology and running, jumping, hiding, shooting cops in black SS outfits. Silence of the Lambs ends as Manhunter begins, seen through a set of high-tech, green-tinted video night vision goggles, symbol of psycho killers everywhere. Why then are we showing Manhunter? 3 reasons. One is that it's very similar to Silence of the Lambs and was made 4 years earlier. Both films are in fact based on books by the author, Thomas Harris. Second is Brian Cox, the outstanding Shakespearean actor who plays Dr. Lector, the mad intellectual of whom we earlier spoke. Cox and Hopkins look the spitting image of each other. And isn't it interesting that when they need a literate psychopath in these movies, for example, Lecktor or Klaus von Bülow, they cast a heavyweight English actor? And a question. Why is it that in cop rock movies like this and To Live and Die in LA, all the characters stand with their heads permanently cocked to one side like this?
Okay, I interviewed him to talk about Robbie Mueller for the To Live and Die in LA movie club.
Do you remember? Oh, yes.
Remember what he said about that?
Yes. Okay. Now I know what's going on.
Well, in the Manhunter one, and I'm a huge Alex Cox fan. Very thankful to him for taping with me about Robbie Mueller. When introducing it, when both films, he says, it's your typical Hollywood LA cokehead kind of thing where somehow this guy can afford a beach house in Malibu. He said that Will Graham lives in a beach house in LA, and then that begs
was he referring to cokeheads as in where's that?
I don't know. And also To Live and Die in LA, there's no drugs used or referenced.
Coke.
No, there's coke in the book, the terrible book.
Okay, I did not acknowledge the book.
I finished it, by the way. We'll talk about that in the supplemental portions of the other. Yeah,
there's a flippancy basically to how he delivers things about films, and I'm not. Although I really enjoy his books and the films I've watched, but I think sometimes when you listen back to what he's said, you feel that he's not preparing anything here, is he? It's like he's literally sat there just vomiting it up.
And I think he watched them once and had some built-in antipathy towards any. Yeah. He even said that To Live and Die in LA was clearly a studio picture with Friedkin as a worker for hire. And I thought, okay, well, whatever. But the cocaine thing was wrong. This film is not set in Los Angeles. It never goes to Los Angeles. There is Missouri. There is mostly Florida. So, Alex, I don't know.
I'm sure, though, if you gave him the project of writing about Manhunter and Michael Mann, it would be a completely different opinion.
Yes.
Because I think he is a better writer of cinema than he is somebody who is going to talk about it, because I think he just turns up and then he'll just say something and you just think, that's not, it's not.
Well, because the other thing is that he talks about Willam Petersen in not the most flattering way. He doesn't think he's a very good actor, but the most egregious thing is he said, basically, he just repeats his performance from To Live and Die in LA. There couldn't be two more different characters, I think. Will Graham is like reticent. He cares a lot. Chance doesn't care about anything except.
I think it's possibly because of being British, you're just hearing the American accent and you're not necessarily detecting on anything beyond what the characters are. You're just assuming that they're. I mean, Willam Petersen, he's not he's not fucking Daniel Day-Lewis, is he?
Who is?
But who is?
Who
know,
is?
like, that's arguably the greatest actor of all time. William Petersen is brilliant in both them films. He is completely part of what makes these films, To Live and Die in LA and Manhunter, work the way they do.
Absolutely. And they're his first two films, which is insane.
Which is even more remarkable. That's remarkable.
And he was so troubled by the role that he not shaved his head, he got a haircut and dyed it blonde.
Yeah, for the theatre.
I would love to see a photo of that because I cannot.
Well, he couldn't get work afterwards.
Oh, really? Oh, that's right.
He struggled because people associated him so much with the film.
Yeah.
Even so, he took it upon himself to dye his hair for a theatre role he had, if I recall.
Well, he said he also he had trouble shaking the part.
Yeah.
Which makes more sense than To Live and Die in LA.
But there's your answer right there about how good he is as an actor.
Yes.
And I think Michael Mann is very good at choosing actors who often come more from a theatre background than they do cinema and film. And it's a completely different feel you get, whether you're watching Last of the Mohicans or whether you're watching Manhunter.
Yeah.
You know that those actors are coming from a completely different background and they're bringing something into it that are making Michael Mann approaches it like he's going to write a novel.
Yes.
He's
sometimes he does
English literature. That's his background.
Yeah.
And that's him as a filmmaker. And I think it shows in the way he directs the actors, in the types of actors he wants. I think it's incredible.
Yeah, because Joan Allen, what was her background? Golly, you were going to say something.
No, actually, I was just going to say the thing also about Manhunter is that Michael Mann is coming off of, he came off The Keep. When we see a lot of The Keep, we see a lot of The Keep in Manhunter. Everything that did not work in The Keep that he uses in Manhunter somehow works.
Yes.
It's amazing. But then obviously he goes off and does Miami Vice.
Yeah, which he was working on concurrently.
And I think he had 2 years of it by the time that Manhunter came out. And so we see a lot of that also pulled, especially color theory, which I'm going to talk about a lot today just because I'm obsessed. But
well, then have you seen the series Miami Vice?
No, I haven't. My dad and I talked about it in depth because when I started telling him my whole Manhunter spiel, which I'll get into eventually, he was like, well, Miami Vice is all pastels.
It's color-coded per season.
It's all color-coded per season. It's pastels.
No brown allowed.
No brown allowed.
It's a revolutionary TV series because of the color palette and because of the costume design and everything about the aesthetic of that changed television in the way how it looked forever, absolutely forever.
Sopranos would not have the feel.
It's such a shame about the movie because it's the only Michael Mann film I don't like. I even like The Keep.
What about Ferrari? The new Ferrari?
Loved it.
I want to see it. Did you not care for it?
We'll talk about that later.
Loved it. Yeah. I watched it on the plane. I watched it on the plane over.
I'm not going to badmouth Michael Mann at all on this because I think that Michael Mann is such an intentional director.
Yes.
I think the color theory is a fantastic example of that. And also his music choices, which I'm sure we're going to get into.
Yeah.
And every single shot that he uses. My dad said the very first time that he saw Manhunter, not the opening shot. A lot of people attribute this to being the opening shot because it takes place right after the opening credits. But that shot of him and his cop partner on the beach.
Oh, yes.
My dad said that was crazy. He said it was the best shot he had ever seen in the history of cinema, seen on the big screen when it first came out.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Because the symmetry and also the colors and Michael Mann's fixation with water.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The stuff in Thief, very similar beach times, even when they're sort of reveling before things go really bad in Thief and in Heat as well, right? He looks out the window all the time at the water.
Yes. Well, there's always that. He'll always have characters that are gazing outwards to something and the landscape and the relationship of man and space and environment and architecture. And I'm sure we will get into this, but Michael Mann, we can talk about color palette, but he's impeccable with framing.
Oh no, his framing is
it's
brilliant.
wild.
It's unbelievable. Like even when you rewatch them, you're like you realize, oh my god, it's that intricate. It really is that intricate.
And actually rewatching it, you're allowed to sort of see more because you're still pulled into the emotional content. Some filmmakers get accused of being overly precious about the frame and not caring as much about the emotional content. But with Mann, all the framing is there to enhance the emotional content. Same with the color stuff, which was heavily, heavily criticized at the time of release. Wow. They said it was just sticky, like 80s garbage.
No.
Exactly.
Who do I have to have a conversation with?
A lot of critics.
The framing, though, is especially because, like, in that opening part where the cop has kind of come to take him back to
the Dennis Farina, I have to say. Yeah.
And my mom today, she was like, Farina means flower in French.
And he was a real cop.
Oh, was he really?
Real cop that Michael Mann discovered during the making of Thief.
So Michael Mann.
It is. And it's very parallel with Friedkin as well.
Yeah, very Friedkin also.
Yeah, and some people said, we might have talked about this, some people said, Friedkin ripped off Miami Vice. Miami Vice started right when production was ceasing, I think, on To Live and Die in L.A. And no, they didn't hate each other because Friedkin sent him some footage from To Live and Die in L.A. when Mann was curious about casting Bill Petersen. And also, Mann wanted to cast Willam Friedkin as Hannibal Lector.
Oh, that would have been so... I remember we talked about this. I would have loved that so much.
I never knew that. That's mind blown.
And he said to Mann, he's like, is that how you see me? And he said, yes, actually, that is how I see you.
But I was going to say,
that would have been incredible.
Wouldn't it? Brian Cox is great, but oh god, if there was some way to go
Brian
back
Cox
in time.
Is great. No, I would have loved to see both versions, to be honest. Like if there was a double version. But the framing in that sequence where Farina has come back and it's after they're on the beach and then they're inside the house and it's him and it's his wife.
Yes.
And he says, why did you have to come back to get him?
Yeah.
And they are in same frame but separated by the window panes. Yeah. And it's like his two worlds that he's now having to pick between. And it sets up the movie perfectly.
It does.
It's an amazing sequence.
So that opening sequence as well, like when you watch the film and you remember the novel, it is so close to the book. Aside from some major points that Mann has removed just to keep the pace of it. And the ending as well is vastly different.
Is it? I didn't read the book.
So if you watch the movie and you've already read the book, then there are bits in that you'll be at the end thinking,
like,
why was that removed? There is a major sequence in the novel where it goes back to Dolarhyde's past.
Wow.
And it is the origin with his grandmother. It shows you the obsession with the teeth, how he was how he was born, troubled birth, and everything that leads to all of these elements that make that character. And I don't know, mate, it might be a case of Mann thinking, with flashbacks, they don't often... Sometimes they don't work. They can trip a film up. I disagree with that. I like flashbacks. People are sniffy about them, but I like a bit of me and how did he become that character and what's his family like and what shaped him. And there is the moment at the end. If you want to see that filmed, then I'm pretty sure the Red Dragon movie
has those elements
that they went back to with Hopkins has that scene. So are we allowed spoilers?
Yeah.
So
definitely.
the scene at
we've given you the warning, folks.
The scene in the novel is where he basically fakes his own death. So the house sets on fire.
The Tooth Fairy does.
The Tooth Fairy, and because he has a woman he's obsessed with who is blind, he knows that he can use that to his advantage. So the shotgun goes off and the body of someone who has had their head blown off is found in the fire. So you think he's dead. That's it. End of story. When Will Graham gets back home, he's there waiting, and there is an entire sequence where he basically tries to kill Will Graham. He causes the scar across his face, which is only hinted at in the film of just falling through glass.
He slices him.
Slices him. That bit happens. And it's his wife, if I recall, that eventually shoots and kills him. Now, when you get to the TV series of Hannibal, halfway through the final half of the third season, they do the Red Dragon story again. And Fuller actually, he's lent so far into sort of the queer slant by that point that Hannibal and Graham, that they are these partners in crime briefly to bring down the Red Dragon.
Yeah.
And it's so heightened because the entire series has those moments where there is that touch of fantasy and the wings open up behind him and he is the Red Dragon, but it's done in such a way that it's dreamlike, and they kill him together.
Wow.
And then they fall over the cliff together, embracing, and it ends, and that's the end of the Hannibal TV series.
Oh, wow.
So that was a major spoiler.
That's okay.
If you've not watched the Hannibal TV series, I think it's incredible.
Yeah.
I think it's absolutely stunning.
Well, it sounds pretty wild. Also, I realized upon this watch that he does turn into the Red Dragon when he's bleeding out on the floor.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, but there's also another instance of that, actually. So I'm just going to go straight into it. Let's just start talking about the movie. Okay. When I'm looking at this movie, I was telling Rich, I was joking, I'm just going to come and say, I love this movie. I love this movie so much because I really love this movie.
Wasn't that part awesome? Yeah, Bill Petersen, totally awesome.
It's amazing. But okay, when I started looking at this movie color-wise, there's basically 3 color, maybe. Okay, they're always dressed in like this blue or blue-green color, and you can argue that blue and green are kind of similar, so I just always say blue.
This is why I'm wearing the suit, and this is kind of like Will Graham's slightly askew
tie.
Yeah,
but they're always wearing blue.
Yeah,
the women are typically wearing white. The only other character that wears white is Hannibal. Like Hannibal wears white. The cell is white, and then the doctor that's with him is wearing, I think, blue. And then red. Okay, so red is only shown like 3 or 4 times in the movie.
Yeah,
the first time is when Will Graham is walking with his son after the newspaper articles come out that he's gone and visited Hannibal, and they're in the grocery store, and they start going through, and he starts telling him, I was in a psych ward and I was in all this stuff, and the cereal boxes turn from blue to red.
Wow, I never noticed that.
And the Jello boxes turn from blue to red when they're behind the son, and the son asks him, are you gonna kill him? Like, when are you gonna kill him? And he's like, I'm not here to kill him, I'm just here to catch him. And they turn blue again.
Oh, wow.
The second time that I'm going to get into this, because I'm going to be honest.
Now, this thrills me because
Joan Allen, who plays Reva, it's my favorite character of the movie. It's my favorite part of the movie, that whole sequence of like when he sees her and like the mistake. But when he goes to the house and knocks on her door after he's seen her and her coworker kind of, they're not canoodling, but he thinks they're canoodling. And she's wearing a white skirt with a blue jacket. Okay, so when she goes back into her house, she's taken off her blue jacket. What is she wearing? A pink red blouse.
Wow.
And when he comes to the door and she's like, who is it? And he's like, it's me. No, it's me. And she's like, oh, is it Francis? And she opens the door and the white light comes in and it turns red.
Yeah, it turns
for the first
red.
time in the movie. And her shirt is red and he's red. And he's like, no, Francis is gone. Francis is dead.
Yeah.
And the Red Dragon has become, basically.
That's right, because, it's flooding in.
It's flooding in red.
I did notice that this time.
It's brilliant filmmaking to introduce the Red Dragon
there
with the color, because the Red Dragon lives within both of them, because Will Graham has to absorb the Red Dragon to become him in order to defeat him, which I think is one of the reasons why the role was so hard to shake for him.
I think so.
Because
also,
he had to put himself into the character, which has to put himself into a serial killer, which then has to like remove himself. So
he has to both be the cop and then also absorb the other stuff. So he spent a long time with the real guys who do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
To the point that the guys he was researching with said, this is the point where you should probably stop hanging with us and asking questions and reading all of this material.
Oh, wasn't that thoughtful?
Go back to your red life.
Good old serial killers telling them not to.
Well, no, it was the researcher. It was the special agent. He was
going and seeing the serial killers, and they were telling him that.
You know what? And I forget the killer's name, but Michael Mann researched a specific killer, and he met with him a couple times
that
in the
doesn't
prison.
surprise me
at all, no. Right?
What's that? I wonder which one it was.
It was a 3-name guy.
Not BTK.
No, this was. I'll look it up and put an insert in, like, sorry, folks, we forgot the name.
I bet it's going to be one of the same guys from the MANHUNTER the original ones that they would have gone to see to study the.
Incidentally, when I've told people, I'm like, you should see Manhunter. They're like, yeah, no, I saw Mindhunter. I'm like, no. I'm sure that's good. I've heard it's good. Manhunter. Which should have been called Red Dragon, maybe. But
no, Manhunter. It's so good, and also like that opening title where it's like Manhunter and it's in green.
Manhunter.
It looks like the Hulk.
I still keep laughing at it. The title, Manhunter.
Well, there's some other color stuff that I want to add to, but do you have more?
I have lots of color stuff. We'll just keep talking about movies.
So when you see Dolarhyde, you only see, except at the lab where you see Cool Blue, again, like you mentioned, he has a normal interaction with a woman who seems to find him somewhat attractive.
Well, he's like the boss almost at his company. He is the most knowledgeable. Everyone's like, oh, Mr. Dolarhyde. Oh, Mr. Dolarhyde. Like, he is the greatest of all time guy there. Like, he literally knows what he's doing.
Very much so. A little too much so. Yeah. And of course, that's at the place where they process all the family films. Yeah. Which I don't think...
They don't really go into that much. It's unless you've got to really properly watch and figure that out for yourself.
And even on this rewatch, I wasn't thinking about... I mean, a little bit, I was like, oh yeah, he has the photo there. And then when he's watching the film, you're not thinking...
When he invites her over, like basically for a date.
Yes.
The blind girl, like, let's watch my next victim together.
Right. But yet still, I know I'm just doing a little homework, and still when Graham in that incredible sequence, which still brings the same amount of suspense and like chills to me every time I watch it, when he's sitting with Jack Crawford, aka Dennis Farina, and he's watching, he's like, you know that it was a padlock. You brought it for the padlock, and you know that that's their dog, but he doesn't have a collar, don't you, my man? And so how do you? And he keeps rewinding, and I love how it shows the obsessive, necessary obsessiveness, and over he's winding, because those films are only like 3 minutes long, and he's pausing them. And I also like the tactile. He's hitting the buttons on.
Oh, that scene also, it has a great moment where once he's watched all of the childhood things and he says, okay, now call the guy, see where the films are from. And he goes to the window and he's at the window, and all of a sudden he touches the window, because before he figures it out, he's touching his shadow, the dark side of himself.
Yes.
And then he lifts the hand off as if to be like, I can't go that far. It's a wonderful actor moment. And I asked my dad, we rewatched that, like a few of these sequences this morning together. And I asked him, was that an actor moment? And he's like, no. That was a Michael Mann moment, for sure. Yeah. He was like, okay, we see the window, we see the reflection. Okay, now you go up to it, you kind of touch it, don't touch it. But no, that was a Mann moment.
And also when it slips out a bit, right before he's like, I have to be alone. And to the wife, why don't you go see your dad in Montana? Kevin hasn't seen him in a while, etc. Or he hasn't seen Kevin in a while. Then it's rainy and he's at the airport, and his hand, which is almost trembling, in the same exact shape. That must have been fun for Bill Petersen. Yeah. Michael Mann going, no, Bill, just a little to the left. Bill, no, just a little higher. Okay, I'm going to come over and show you. Okay. Dante, can you change the light a little?
It's that idea of like the images and the mirror image, and Gala and I spoke about this recently, but the internal monster being always that reflection. Always the internal thing that's inside people that could make them do things that they shouldn't be doing. Yeah. But also there is the whole thing with the meta element of the films within the film. And going back to Peeping Tom, and if you watch Peeping Tom alongside Manhunter, I would be surprised if even Thomas Harris, when he was writing the novel, hadn't maybe seen that film and he was trying to recreate a similar character that is filming the victims, or the voyeuristic aspect that we always get with serial killer movies, and looking on their victims from afar and studying them and finding that perfect moment, or finding their theme, finding their art, and finding what they're going to latch onto. And
like their conceptual thing.
Their conceptual thing. So there's like Peeping Tom on one side, and then you have another one it really reminded me of that I think about when I was a teenager. I still am. I love the character. I used to read the comic book Hellblazer. And there's a storyline in Hellblazer with John Constantine called The Family Man. It's one of, if not the best arcs in John Constantine's lineage of stories. And it is about a killer that preys on families. But it's gritty. it's one of the few stories as well of John Constantine where it's not to do with the occult. In fact, I think it's the first story not to do with the occult, where he arrives back home in the UK and he has this crime to solve, and it starts to reveal John Constantine's background and the relationship with his father, and delves into how Constantine is going to try and figure out and get into the mind of how this killer works. So there's no doubt about it that who I think it's Jamie Delano at the time wrote that storyline. He's definitely going to have read The Red Dragon.
Sure. Yeah, and there's another aspect that I think I really honed in on this time, and I knew that the sensory thing with Joan Allen when he brings her to the sedated tiger, but then he's watching her, and so her primary sensory input would be sound, and then he is getting off on the visual of her doing that, and sort of knowing also that he's doing something nice for someone, because that's the sequence where we see a whole other side of Dolarhyde, who we don't see until he's with Louns, which is an amazing sequence that I'm sure we'll talk about in a minute.
Oh, yeah, we will, for sure.
Yes,
that's my favorite sequence in the movie.
Do you see? That's one of my favorite horrifying lines. That is scary as hell.
Dialogue-wise, and again, this is what's brilliant about the novel. When you read in the novel, I grabbed it off the shelf again because I was so curious as to how it's so long since I've read the book, and I was curious how close it is to the novel. And dialogue is absolutely crucial because Thomas Harris, really, when you read his books, this is the only book of it I've read, by the way, so we can only go on Red Dragon, but he is somebody who doesn't enjoy the writing process, and you can tell because he relies so much on telling the story, not through expositional dialogue, but dialogue that tells a character the way they talk, the rhythm, the beats. It's a bit, like the rattle of watching Tarantino or an Elmore Leonard story. It feels like there is a rhythm to it. So when you're reading the books, they are a very quick read, but there's very little character development in terms of when I say character development, description.
Okay.
You don't really get to have a feel of what Lector looks like or really what Graham looks like, but you can picture them still and the way that they interact in. But the whole "do you see" is a prime example because it's 2 pages. It feels like "do you see? Do you see?" And it's like it's literally lifted from the novel,
book, which
because
is wild in the
dialogue
book.
Is very cinematic. It works for film. It feels like Thomas Harris is taking a shortcut and for his own benefit, because he didn't like writing prose. He's treating it like he's writing a script. He's writing a screenplay, and that's how it feels when you read the book.
It does, and I can imagine reading it in the book, and I'm sure my guess is they're describing the pictures that Louns is seeing, and so that fills up the other stuff. And then, do you see? Briefly. Louns is terrified, etc., something like that. But also, the end sequence is made even more powerful and scary to me when I realized, wait a second, Joan Allen's only way of knowing where she is besides having her cane is by sound. Yes. And he puts the 8-track of Iron Butterfly on and cranks it. And I didn't think about it until this time because it's just so scary anyway. I'm like, she doesn't know where she is. She doesn't know why Francis is being this way.
And I think she even says to him, like, what you're doing is evil. It's ugly.
Yes, it's ugly. It's ugly.
And then the word choice that she uses is ugly.
And ugly comes up again too when Kevin, and by the way, this is a scene that made me cry. I'm even like choking up thinking about the scene in the supermarket. And I don't know, it's because I have a son now, but I think I saw it once. No, did I? No, this might be the first. No, I saw it at the theater, but I was taken out of the movie by the guy who couldn't stop rattling his candy. That was a bit annoying. He was a nice guy though. And I just was like, don't do it to myself. Yeah, you know what I was? I was going, stop it. When he is running at the window, it's almost like cognitive behavioral therapy. You have to say stop and then route back to the initial trigger, which now is a good time to mention the director's cut versus theatrical.
Okay, so tell me what the difference is.
Okay, so
I'm pretty sure I've only seen theatrical twice because the theatrical is 120 minutes, right?
I think so. And then there's a 2-minute difference,
okay,
which seems insubstantial. However, he cuts out something from the sequence where Graham is watching the tapes and watching him and watching him and watching him and realizing he's seen these films, which again, he's seen the films, but you're so wrapped up in it at that point, which is another bit of daring do on Michael Mann's part. He cuts out the part when he's saying something about that he never had a chance. He was brutalized as a child. And he said, "You actually have sympathy for this scumbag?"
Oh, I might have watched the director's cut then this second time around. Actually, now that you mention it, because
it's the end bit that's most significant.
Yeah, because
yes, that's the bit that's good. That I wish was if they kept the other bit and had that bit, I'd be like, okay, this director's cut.
Because that you and I talked about monsters, and that line caught me. Someone took a kid and manufactured a monster.
Yes,
at the same time as an adult, he is irredeemable.
Yeah,
and it's like, is that so hard for you to understand? So that's the director's cut.
Yeah, well, no, the director's cut leaves that out.
Oh, what?
Exactly.
What?
But it adds a couple of additional moments.
Okay, so I watched the theatrical. So what's in the director's cut?
Okay, the thing that's of value in the director's cut, because there's also a moment where Michael Talbot, who's on Miami Vice, is one of the two. I can't remember their names, but John Deal and this other guy, Michael Talbot, are the other cops. They're not Crockett and Tubbs. They're like the kind of comic relief ones. They're really good in it. And John Deal, of course, people know as the killer from Angel. But there's a moment where he's showing one of the properties to Graham. And I thought, I don't remember this bit. And it's unnecessary, although you see the inside of this house. And he's playing like the realtor, kind of upset that there was this big murder in the house. And that's the house where Graham is now in the backyard. He finds the candy bar wrapper. So that was a perfectly fine deletion. Which, by the way, is
a Mars bar. And he's obsessed. It's a Mars bar candy wrapper, and he is obsessed with the moon.
Oh my God.
And so the whole thing is it's an interstellar tie-in.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's no accidents in a Michael Mann film.
No, there are no accidents at all.
Poor choices in that he removes that bit of dialogue, which I think is really impactful and actually makes a huge difference in the film. And I think I didn't notice it because I knew it. It's in there. When I turned it off and I went to get some water, I thought, oh my God, that's not in the fucking movie. At the end, though, before we see Graham and his wife.
Oh, yeah, this is a bit I have a problem with.
Really? Okay, he shows up at the house of what would have been the next victims. And he's there and his face is all fucked up. And they think it's an intruder at first, and he says, "No, my name is Will Graham," and he just wants to see them. So it's sort of even more.
It replaces the bit on the harbour as well.
Oh, wait, it replaces the bit on the harbour?
Yeah, so the last bit, if I recall, where they're on the harbour, and then it kind of cuts to them.
Okay, so that moment on the harbour is one of the best moments in the entire movie, because it's a faraway shot of him at the harbour after, and then they cut to a close-up, and if you're not paying attention, you will think he is still looking down at the water at the harbor. And then when you hear his son call his name,
this is why
it's so jarring. Because you're like, wait a second, he's back on the beach at home now. It's such a perfect cut that Mann does. It goes straight to that.
That's
and
right.
so if you replace the part of the harbor with him going
to the house,
you completely
what do you
lose.
Think might happen?
Well, you completely lose that cut. You completely lose that moment of like he's so in his dream that you don't know which reality he's in. Is he back as like the detective, or is he a family man?
It's just clunky as well. It really trips up that rhythm of the edit and how they wrap everything up. You're not crying out really for Will Graham to knock on the door of someone we've been watching ourselves anyway, and we will fill in those blanks.
They're okay.
And they're okay.
Yeah, they're okay.
We know. And also he's removed a major part from the novel that we mentioned about earlier, where he fakes his death and then he goes back and finds out where Will Graham is.
Yeah.
So it's, I don't know, just for me,
it's not great. And I'd previously seen that scene.
And the quality of it as well is completely different, because it's not been, if you watch it on the Blu-ray even.
Yeah.
You can see, and this happens a lot when you watch director's cuts, is that they have found a version of it that, is all cruddy and not clean enough and doesn't match up and has not been remastered, or something was lost, or the sound was lost, or it's the wrong negative.
Yeah, and it's a clear quality difference. Also, the husband of the family
oh my God,
so
don't
bad.
Get me started.
It looks like something that was shot for TV because they couldn't use something else. That's the way.
He goes in at 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Within a moment that lasts, what, 30 seconds?
Maybe,
a minute?
Yeah.
And he kind of goes, oh, hi.
But meanwhile, Petersen's still good, though, because he's there and it's creepy. And then they said, you want to come in? Thank you so much. And he goes, no, I just wanted to see you. I wanted to come and see you. And I like that. But the real ending is way better. The real ending is way better.
Theatrical is king. Yet again, theatrical is king.
Not with Crimes of Passion, but we had that argument.
And I would agree with Gala. It's very rare I enjoy or think a director's cut is any good.
Interesting. See, I tend to, if I have the option, I'll watch the director's cut first, except with Manhunter, I didn't because I'd seen the theatrical. And then I looked at the scenes and I thought, ooh, I don't know about this. This looks like a made-for-TV ending. But there are also, like, I think 2 other strange little additions. One is in the initial chat with Dennis Farina on the beach. And it's a couple bits of dialogue that don't need to be there. But you can tell because the quality shifts because those amazing shots where you see
are
the
so
back.
clear and so clean.
Exactly. And then you're like, well, and the sound's a little muffled. So they don't need to be in there. I don't know. We'll never see it keep director's cut. So
well, okay. So really quick. So we've referenced that as the opening sequence, but that's not the opening sequence of the movie. The opening sequence of the movie is like the killer's POV through the house.
Yeah.
But can we talk about what is that thing in the opening shot? I
don't know.
At that. I have been staring at the opening shot. I asked my dad. I asked my mom. No, before the stairs.
It looks like the front of a car.
It's in front of a car, but there's 3 lights. So it's like, is it a grill? Is it a film processing thing? But it's the weirdest thing to start on. And Michael Mann is such an intentional director.
Yeah.
And I've never seen this object ever again in the movie.
No. I was looking at it today wondering what the hell. I was like, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just staring at it.
I was wondering, I was like, did I see that at the Arrow? I don't remember seeing that. I just thought this jumped out at me and I thought, oh, maybe this is because it's the director's cut.
But it is an addition. That is a Michael Mann addition because, again, if you go back to the novel, it starts right there on the beach with Graham.
But it's like right before, and then they have the credit sequence and then it goes into Graham. But I don't know what this object is. Like my mom said, oh, is it a trapdoor in a basement? I said, no, because we know that he enters through the sliding glass door with the glass cutters. And we know there's a bolt opening. And at first I thought it was a car and like an ornament on a hood of a car, but there are 3 lights. There's not a set of headlights. I don't know what it is. If someone listening can identify this strange object for me, I would really appreciate it because I can't figure it out. I screenshot it. I sent it to people. I asked them, what is this? What is the significance of this? Because Michael Mann chose that
as the starter,
as the first shot, and we never see it again.
Yeah, there's never anything left to chance.
We're just not good enough detectives or forensic scientists to find
we are
these
not
things out.
good
and
enough.
I think we've failed already. So
someone out there will know. Someone out there.
They will, of course they will.
Oh, back to the color theory for a sec. Outside the blue light in the lab, Dolarhyde's house is bathed in green and purple, unease colors. And then at the lab...
Also very William Blake as well.
Oh, is it? Okay,
William Blake's paintings, the greens and that palette.
See, that's why behind me I have red and blue, and then behind you is a pinky purple because you 2 are maybe dodgy. I don't know, but then you also have blue. You see, so I give you both. Yeah, it's right. The pink is right in the center. So, and then the shots of family life bathed in blue. Him and Joan Allen. No, not Kim Greist on the bed talking. Those scenes are so beautiful too, and I actually cried a couple times during those
scenes. It's exactly right after he looks at the photograph of one of the families that is bathed in blue, and then it cuts to them in the room, and it is bathed in the exact same shade of blue, and it's like he's putting himself into the photograph almost. It's a really, really wonderful moment.
It is, and then you really get a sense of now. Of course, being a family man, it affected me differently than it did before, which is really remarkable. I also was really touched by Kim Greist's portrayal of the wife, because you don't know when she's going to say, Will, what are you doing? She does once or twice, but then she says, I'm sorry, I'm being selfish.
And also she says stuff like, oh, this house is fine. Like, don't worry about us.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't want you to go, but I know you have to. It's almost like the perfect wife.
Well, but you can tell that she's upset but she realizes that like these people will die. There's going to be a bunch of people dead.
And her husband needs to do this.
Needs to do it, yet he's still putting himself in harm's way. I like the consideration of that doctor, too. In another one of my favorite sequences, the one where they're all sat around the table after they've analyzed the note from the tooth fairy in all the different forensics areas, which is also the first time we've ever seen that in a movie.
Yeah.
That started basically CSI. That without that, there is no forensic sequences in any other film, I don't think.
It's masterful.
Yeah. And also, it carries you along. It is not too technical, and they're running from place to place, which gives you the sense of urgency. And also, constantly, get me a chopper, and we need to be over at Langley. Like, they're in constant motion, which is remarkable also in a pre-cell phone age. That, you know,
he like sends a fax on an airplane.
Yeah, I know.
When I saw that, I was like, wait a second, I can't even turn my cell phone on an airplane. How is he sending a literal like fax thing through like the mega faxer or whatever on an airplane? It's astonishing.
And in
the
that
technology we've lost.
Yes, no, I know. And also the handiness with phones and being patched into three-way calls. That doctor is great. Dr. Chilton, yeah, he's not that friendly to the security guy, but he gives him the note. And there's also a very interesting thing. That's all white as well, that room.
Yes, that whole room, the whole Hannibal Lector thing is white. Everything with Hannibal
is white. And then there's a light that's shown at the camera, which is like, it's striking and of course not accidental. I don't know what's going on with that. But in the lab where the woman who is looking, I can't remember what she's looking at first, she's looking at the hair samples. Off to the side, there are some windows where there's something is in there, purple. So, yeah. And then when Graham's on the phone with Lector, in one of the most amazing shots of the skyline, and he's sitting one way, and then he's on the phone with them, and he's in the corner of the shot. So you're kind of claustrophobic, yet there's this huge, vast city behind him. That's all blue light behind him, too. And there's a mixture of light in the fake out where there's the jogger.
Yeah.
Which is also a good fake out for the audience. And that the Tooth Fairy has figured out what is going on.
So that scene also has a few things that, okay, I have not read the book, full disclaimer, so I'm just going off what's on the movie.
That's okay, I haven't either. The movie's the only thing that's...
Okay, let's just do a little thought experiment here about monsters.
Yes.
Okay, the killer is on a lunar cycle.
Yes.
He has to be shot with special bullets, which he presents to him at the sequence with the runner.
Yes.
When they're going to walk the thing. It's a werewolf story. He's a werewolf. He's a tooth fairy. He bites his victims.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's
like the quintessential.
It is, and also, if we're gonna go with that analogy,
let's just go with it. Why not?
Why not?
The whole modern monsters and the American monster, and how
the anxieties that we have,
the law, and how things are reinvented, and the way we use real monsters in films, serial killers.
Yeah.
You know,
well, the fascination that we have with them as well.
And Lunar it means that's where the term lunatic comes from.
Yeah, lunatic,
so if you're looking at
that's right.
lunatic in the asylum, and then you couldn't get any closer.
And he has this obsession with obviously the Mars bar, but the moon, because he's on the lunar cycle, the obsession with the moon. In his apartment house, there is that painting, and I think it is like not a lunar landscape, but like, is it Mars?
That's what I always took it to be.
Another thing that could connect it as well is Thomas Harris. If you read, there's a really interesting introduction in the book where it talks about how he struggled coming up with where the crime was going and how he would solve it as the writer. And that's why Hannibal Lector was created.
Wow.
In order to actually have a character for Will Graham and for Thomas Harris to sit in front of and figure out who the killer is and how he's killing.
That's amazing.
And also, there's this whole thing of when he was coming up with those ideas, he was in a field, an open field, with all of his dogs around him howling.
Wow, there you go, the lunatic, the werewolf.
And he would go out into the night, into the dark, and he would talk about the moon and the blackness of the fields.
Because it even continues, because I mean, he has that thing of Mars in his apartment, and then he has so this sequence with the blind woman.
Yes.
Okay, who in the movie is called Reba McLean.
Yeah,
okay,
right.
so when
Reba,
Francis and Reba are on a date together, Francis and Reba.
Tonight at 9, Francis and Reba.
So yeah, Francis. For those of you who haven't seen the movie, I don't know why you're listening, but Francis works at this photochemical lab, and he goes into one of the rooms and he needs to get something processed. And I wasn't sure if it was photographs of his victims that he needed her to do, or like why he was going in there.
Oh, I figured it out.
Yeah, so what is that?
My assumption is, anyway, he says it needs to be no light and all this stuff. Well, she's blind, so she's going to process them because she won't know.
But he doesn't know that she's blind.
Well, now
when he walks
that's
in.
true. But yeah, right. He's just told she's the expert. But what he tells her is it's going to be nocturnal animals.
Yeah.
That he's going to be taking photos of a family in darkness or
That's
whatever.
what I thought, because he's a werewolf.
Yeah.
But so he goes
It's
to her.
Transformation thing as well.
There's a transformation thing also, and he goes to her, and when she turns around, he's shocked to find that she's blind.
Yes.
And he almost falls in love at first sight. You can kind of tell that he's kind of stumbling over his words. And is it because he feels like he's so ugly that no one who can see can love him? I'm not sure, because when she says, "Can I touch your face to see if you're smiling?" and he says, "No, you can just take my word for it, I am." Well, he's not smiling, but he doesn't want her to feel what he looks like.
Because he does. He thinks that he is a monster.
Yeah.
And that's another reason why that monologue or dialogue about how he grew up, because that's the only hint. He said this kid had no chance. They made a monster. That just helps to reinforce that, because when they're in bed after Francis and Reba.
God, okay, oh my God, this is the best. This is the best. But wait, before they're in bed after sex, okay, he drives her home, but somehow they're at his house. I think then they get dinner together at some point.
He makes dinner.
A very nice dinner. They eat a very nice dinner, and then he watches his next victims on the screen. Says it's homework, but she can't tell. But she makes the first move on him.
Yes.
And then it cuts to them having sex to this song, and I don't like this song, but my dad said that Michael Mann chose this song for a reason,
so therefore it's a good song.
And it's like literally like the lyrics are like, "And the moon, and I see you," and stuff. So it's whatever, but they're having sex, and she is like listening, and she's like, "You're a very kind man, Dolarhyde. You have a very strong heart." And she goes down and she listens to the beating of his heart.
Yes.
And then when she like falls down on top of him, it reveals the TV is static, like the stars. Because the video has stopped playing of the killers. Of like the family he's going to kill or whatever.
Oh, no, but he's only watching that on the...
so what is he watching on the TV?
No, he has there's TVs all over the place that are just set to like...
Static? Because it's the stars.
And like in between channels, because there's a rolling shutter on one.
Yeah, because he is... So it's like when she leans down, and it's the static TV, which represents the stars, and it zooms in to the starscape.
Right.
And it's so beautiful. And then they wake up together or they don't wake up. He wakes up. Yeah. And she's still on top of him, and he moves her off of him and listens to the beating of her heart.
Yes.
And then she rolls back on top of him. And in a strange moment, he takes her hand and lets her feel his face so that she, while she's asleep, can feel what he looks like. But what does he do after that? He opens his eyes.
And he cries.
Because that's what he does to his victims.
Oh my God,
he opens their eyes with their hands, and then he cries.
I never thought of that. That's amazing.
It's such a beautiful moment.
That's incredible.
And then, of course, the next morning she wakes up and goes to the dock and feels the sun, and he's worried that she's left, and he's just like in love with her.
But he doesn't want her to go back into the house for some reason. That's very strange, and I still haven't figured out why.
Because the sunset's so beautiful, and she should feel it.
Well,
that's like what he says, and you know what? I think that's just fine.
Also, in terms of color, it's orangish. I mean, it's very natural. The distance from which they shot that, I don't know, because then it zooms in all the way over. You're like, that's like a football field. Like.
The whole beat, again, just going back to what Gala was observing about feeling his heartbeat and the breath and the stars and the relationship between this monster and what he's obsessed with looking at.
Yeah.
It's obviously, there's a crucial scene where he takes her to see a tiger.
Oh, the tiger.
And
the amazing tiger moment.
What's the famous William Blake poem?
Oh, I don't know.
With the whole tiger burning bright.
Oh, I know.
Oh, okay.
So the whole kind of where she's stroking the tiger and it's breathing, and
it is the beast in him.
In the beast,
and it's the orange red beast in him.
And
wow.
And also, what I did really like about the series. I've only seen Red Dragon once, so I can't remember much of it. But the series really gets into Dolarhyde doing this bestial yoga and kind of cracking his muscles and his spine and doing weightlifting, and he's just his body. It's about his body. Again, I think that may go back to the novel in the way that Harris describes he's in peak condition, and he is physically. He may be a monster. He may look like a monster, but he really looks after himself.
Wow.
And he just looks pristine. And the whole thing with the tattoo as well was only done as a tester, and they shot it and Mann removed it. So the whole thing with him having the William Blake image on his back or his front, it was going to be in there, but it remains on the marketing. They still use that within the imagery you're seeing because the flexing of the muscle is supposed to animate the dragon.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
It's supposed to kind of show that
red dragon that he does.
Noonan said that all the tests were like kind of excruciating because they had to paint them on every day, and Michael would be like, "No, I don't think that's right. I think we should try it again. Yeah, we should try it again." So they have to strip it off.
Jesus.
Yeah, I'm sure every actor at some point was just like, come on, with Mann. But incidentally, Noonan kept himself deliberately away from the cast and would sit in his trailer in the dark. And
another method actor.
He
exactly
is method.
Yeah, and I don't even. The first
again.
time he saw William Petersen was in that scene, the end scene.
Wow.
Isn't that wild?
Okay, so I have a question.
Yeah.
So you know when Francis is sitting outside of Reba's house and he sees her pull up in the car.
Yes.
Okay, so I've thought about this sequence a lot. It's one of my favorite moments in the movie. But my question is, that night is the full moon. Did he go there to kill her, or did he go there to love her? Because it kind of seems like a surprise to her that he showed up at all.
Well, in the dialogue when they're outside, he says, can I see you again? When can I see you again? She goes, well, you could come to my house tonight. So
she knows that he's on his way.
Yeah. And the other guy's just dropping her off because he's clearly not driving her home again because he's coming to see her.
But that's the full moon. He's there on the full moon because they cut to all of a sudden we only have like an hour left and like you haven't figured it out. So he's basically just like, I'm not going to kill anymore. Like, I think that's kind of what it is. He's found what he's looking for. Yeah.
Well, you see the excitement too. It's such a painful sequence. And we talked about this before because it really hit home with me when I saw it at the midnight screening at New Bev. I've always loved that moment though, because it's so painful, and also the audio in it when he clutches the.
Oh my! When he like uses his
dashboard.
superhuman, his werewolf strength, and destroys his car. Because what happens is that she's been driven home by this other guy, and my dad, to be honest, my dad said, "Oh, that guy might be gay."
Yeah,
that guy who's driving her home is just a nice guy that works at the office that just drives the blind girl home.
Yeah, but he's seeing what he wants to see.
What he sees is that the guy reaches over because she has something in her hair, and he reaches over and Francis looks away and he looks down. He can't take it, and he interprets it. And then he looks back up, and what do we see? We see the keep. We see them backlit, like with like them almost kissing, kind of like not touching, almost touching. And that's when he goes and he rips the car. And he's like, ah! And he turns into the monster. And then he kills that guy. And he says, Francis is not here anymore. Francis is dead.
Gone forever.
Francis is gone forever.
Yeah.
And it's such an amazing sequence. But I love that he uses the keep lighting. Because it doesn't work in the keep, and it works here.
Nor does the eye stuff.
And he uses that when Graham is like thinking back in the thing when he sees the woman, he's like, you want me, and he's like trying to put his mind in the villain. He uses the keep thing, and it's like the keep. It doesn't work in the keep. It works in Manhunter. How? I don't know. I don't get it.
I know.
It's sparing though, isn't it?
It is.
So I think they only use it those 2 times.
Yeah, there's the bit in the bed as well where Will Graham's observing, and the glowing of the moonlight eyes,
and we know it's not fantasy quite. Because it's in his mind, but it's an empty room.
Like
it's an empty room, and then suddenly he can see the woman, and also coupled with the dialogue where he's going, "You want to be desired. She's now desiring you because you make them. After you kill them, you arrange them in a way so they desire you." One of the most terrifying moments is when he's walking up into that house, and it's raining, and then he says, walk past the children's room. The children don't matter to me. They just exist to help me. And I was like, that is the most disturbing lines.
Well, it is really disturbing because they start talking about how he hasn't had sex with his female victims, but with the male ones he has. So it's
no, they lie. That's a lie.
Is that a lie? Because
that's a lie. It's a lie. Oh, well, I don't know. Maybe it's not.
It's a Dolarhyde lie. Or do you mean it's a lie from the people who are trying to...
Because they do talk to the mark. They talk to the tattler.
Well, they do that deliberately to inflame his
Which,
insecurity.
by the way, I did not know that was Stephen Lang.
Yeah, Stephen Lang.
That is Stephen Lang.
He looks so different.
Oh my God.
I know. When I found out this morning that Stephen Lang, which, by the way, you guys are listening.
The mediocre Band of the Hand, produced by Michael Mann. Backdoor Pilot.
Obviously, he's in Avatar, but he's in one of my favorite, Terra Nova, the TV series Terra Nova. Have you ever seen that?
I haven't seen it.
It was like a single series, like a single season, basically where like humans have completely ruined Earth. So like the richest... Siri's talking.
Siri, please shut off. But thank you for the info.
It's a single season show where basically humans have ruined the earth, and so they can go through this portal back in time to dinosaur times when the air is really good and the oxygen's really good.
I'm familiar.
And Stephen Lang is in it, and it's such a fantastic
and obviously
show.
He's in Avatar.
And obviously, Avatar
obviously
too.
He plays the weird serial killer type character in Don't Breathe, he's
so good in this. I did not realize it was him. He's an amazing character actor.
And also
he's a great character actor. In Tombstone, he's unrecognizable.
Oh my God,
I
didn't even realize he was in Tombstone.
Yeah.
I love that movie.
Hey, Graham, let's have lunch or something. You call my people.
Westerns.
Hey, Crawford, great to see you. It's always a thrill. Or
so
something.
Is it a lie that they've told? Because I know that they do that often. Like they'll tell lies to kind of inflame.
Yeah.
Is it a lie?
I think it is. Although he does say earlier, ligature mark on Mr. Leeds' chest, still unexplained. But I think it is a lie because I think, Dolarhyde seems to be more interested in the women, and the women who have a bloom on them, who could be pregnant, are the ones that Graham says there's a through line or whatever. Here, he didn't pick these by accident. He chose these women. And they're always the women that he's looking at. I think the men are just sort of an ancillary part of the issue.
But it's interesting. So, like, if we're going to assume, because I'm just curious about this, because they mentioned maybe the book has some inference, because you said like with his grandmother, because the lie that they say is like, oh, and maybe had sex with his mother.
That's right. Yeah.
And then he's looking at mothers.
Right.
And he's a little bit aroused, but also unable to act upon it. And the only time that he's really able to act upon his arousal is, I guess, one, when she's touching the tiger, you can tell that he's kind of sensory turned on by it. Two, when he's watching the home movie of the mother, and then he looks at her and he looks at her skirt and then her lips.
Yes.
And like that. Yeah. And then finally she makes the move, though. He doesn't make a move.
Right.
So I'm curious as to how much of that is truth and how much of that is lie.
Well, no, I think the homosexual aspect is deliberately provocative to him because he seems to be obsessed with the women, and they never say anything about post-mortem sex of any kind.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the things they can't figure out. Why is he doing this?
Yeah.
Why are the bodies arranged in a way? Does he leave the mirrors on?
Oh, the mirrors. Let's talk about the mirrors soon.
Oh, one last thing though. He does touch the woman because he takes his glove off and he leaves talcum powder. And that's one of the things Graham realizes, that there's talcum powder on her thigh.
But he touches her fingernails and her toenails and the little boy, they find the print on his retina.
On his retina, yeah.
On his retina, but it's a fingerprint on like her toenail or fingernail. And so I think it's to like move to open their eyes.
Oh, okay.
So like that's kind of what I was assuming.
But he put the glove back on though. Like he couldn't resist but to touch
the fingers and the toes.
I thought it was the leg, but
it's very specific, isn't it?
It is very specific.
Think about it. I guess it has to be
to make it
the tool to make the detective
I know
work.
The end of this movie. Yeah. I've seen it twice, and I'm like wrapped up right now in our conversation.
Picking away.
No, I love it. It's great.
As if we don't know who the Tooth Fairy is.
Who is it, by the way? That's why I called you guys over here. Because I was like, this movie, I like it. It looks real pretty. But goddamn, what's it about? I just want to see more of that guy from To Live and Die in L.A., and he's doing the same role like Alex Cox said. So,
so the mirrors. The mirrors thing, because at first they say like we don't know why he breaks the mirrors. They are very clear in this final battle ending sequence why he's breaking the mirrors. At least I interpret it as such.
Yeah.
But I have a whole thing about this final battle, as I always tend to do. So I don't know if you want to get into it now or later.
Go for it.
Okay, so William Graham has come back to the house and the cops are telling him, don't go in, don't go in, don't go in. And he's like, but there's someone in there. There's someone in there with him.
Yeah, wait for backup. Wait for backup.
Don't
Will.
go in. Because what happened when he got shot or punctured, like stabbed, I can't remember what Hannibal did to him that put him in the hospital, that then in turn put him into the psych ward.
Sliced him up really badly.
He sliced him up really bad because he couldn't wait to get him. That's kind of what it was.
Yes,
because he went
to the phone to call the
police.
He went to the phone because he saw the book about war wounds.
He saw the book and he couldn't wait to go get him. So he kind of overstepped. Okay.
And by the way, I love that bit of exposition. It's not clunky at all. But when I'm watching the scene with Kevin in the supermarket, and in between my tears, I was thinking, oh my God, this is where we find out about all of that. When he's talking to his son, his young son who
has read it in the Tattler. And that's why he's not so upset the guy from the Tattler's dead.
No, exactly.
He's kind of fine with it.
I didn't mean to derail you, though.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Well, yeah, I'm not unhappy. I wasn't unhappy. The guy from the Tattler's the one that ate it, too.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because you do not like this guy, but that scene is terrifying.
The grocery store sequence?
No. The grocery store sequence I think is so beautiful.
Where the Tattler guy
Louns
is being having his tongue bitten out, basically. I think that's...
No, it's his lip. Well, if I'm going... You don't know in the film because Mann is so... He holds back so much in this film, which I'm sure we'll get to.
Yeah.
There's very little horror in it in terms of blood and what you see. But I'm pretty sure in the book it says lip. He rips his bottom lip away.
Yeah.
It's funny because you and I discussed when is it good to show a monster and when is it good to hold back. And I think Mann does a lot of holding back in this. Yeah, and I think it's what makes it really scary though.
And it's what makes it so polarizing to Silence of the Lambs, where it goes full on.
And also, when you don't know what the Tooth Fairy has gone through, because like you say in the book, and he withholds that, and you don't know what he goes through, you kind of put into your mind.
Yeah.
Like whatever your worst thing that you could think of that would make someone that way.
Yeah. See, I like that. I love not having a backstory for that reason.
But Thomas Harris being from a journalism background.
Well, it's also a book too, I mean, it's a different form and function, right?
It feels like it's a journalist writing it in a way.
Like he's covering the Tooth Fairy.
And Louns is, Graham's kind of is Harris, and Louns feels like a little bit of a character that is the flip of Harris, where he is very quiet. He's a quiet, unassuming character who thinks and is methodical and is trying to solve something. And like I said earlier, the idea of a writer setting out a story he knows he wants to tell because he's been inspired by the things he saw when he was hanging around with police. But it was only a second novel, so he's still going through the motion of, right, how do I figure out this crime? Which I'm pretty sure everybody from Agatha Christie to that, figuring out, oh my God, they are so hard to write detective stories because you are solving the crime.
And you have to make up the crime and you have to do it
to a degree where the reader cannot be going, well, that was convenient.
Right.
Let's have that bit in there. And the blind girl's convenient. She didn't see him blow his head off. And, which people are going to pick away. But I think it's so well written that it doesn't matter. We don't see that at all.
Well, no, that's it's just like, we see the guy watching the films, but yet the moment where Graham is discovering this, and even if we kind of know it subconsciously, even when I've seen it 10 times, that scene is still suspenseful because it's just like all the President's Men. You know how it ends.
Well, it's also
it's nail-biting suspense. By the way, tell me if it gets too cold in here because I had the air on for a bit.
No, it's so perfect also because exactly halfway through the movie, you are introduced to the Tooth Fairy in person. Exactly halfway through.
Yeah.
And you still have a full hour of the movie. And all of a sudden, you're in the Tooth Fairy's life. And at first you could be like really bored and like, okay, we've solved the mystery, but no, you are on the hook as much as ever because they do this flip with they introduce the blind girl and Reba. They introduce Reba and they're like, we're not going to, he's not going to kill anymore, basically is like what I'm getting from it. Like he's kind of found what he needs. But I love it also because he falls in love with the one person that can't see him, but in turn is the only person who can see him.
Yes.
She's the only person that sees the true person he is inside.
Yeah.
And the thing that he's really been searching for is like, can you see me?
Right.
Can you see me? Okay. So getting to that ending sequence.
Yes.
put aside my werewolf hypothesis. Introduce a new hypothesis here.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have this ending sequence and he's walking through this like very confusing brush with like all these like stalks of wheat and trees, and it's visually very like dynamic and stuff. And
surprisingly well lit for a Michael Mann film.
Yeah, but it's surprisingly well lit, but compared to The Keep, but all of a sudden it's kind of like washed out. Like, there is no color. There is no blue. It is kind of like this kind of like grayscape, and he's going through and he's like, there's someone in the house. There's someone in the house. Because at this point, Dolarhyde has taken Reba back to his house. He's put on that crazy song, which I think is Garden of Eden.
Well, it's Inagata da Vida, because when they were writing it, the guy from Iron Butterfly was so fucked up. He was playing it and he said, Inagata da Vida. So it's in the Garden of Eden, but it's Inagata da Vida.
Well, it's a perfect Hieronymus Bosch version, all distorted and perfect for the movie.
And the song is 17 minutes long. I believe it plays out in real time in the sequence. And so the drum solo going into the window burst, which I watched at Fuck Off Volume today, and it was great. I felt the thrill again from that, because that's like one that you can see it and go, oh, that was good that time I saw it. But no, this time you fully, because it's like a drum fill, like, and then back into the fill right when he crashes through.
Yeah. So at this point, he has taken Reba and he's put on the music. So she, as we said earlier, she can't feel her way around. She doesn't know, because all she has is sound.
Yeah.
And she's overwhelmed. And he goes and he punches the mirror in his own home to get rid of the mirror in his own home. And then he has her on like this, I think it's a table. It's not a butcher.
It's the kitchen table.
It's the kitchen table, and he's over her with the shard of glass, and he's about to cut her up. And that's kind of what Graham is seeing through the window. Okay, so he drops the mirror, and as he's going to go kill her, it reflects his eyes. And for the first time, he sees his eyes. And what does he do? He puts it down. He's not going to kill her.
Oh,
and
wow.
he puts it down, and he actually sighs. He's like exorcised this demon. It doesn't, like, the werewolf doesn't come out. Okay, what does Petersen do? Petersen jumps through the window in this crazy moment. But did you guys realize that there are cuts like in the action?
Yeah.
Okay, so he puts the knife, like not the knife, the blade down of the mirror, and he stops. And then there's a cut. I'm going to guess, I don't know, 5 frames maybe, because it seems
something like that. Yeah.
And then he looks up. And this... Look, there's too many frames cut out of this sequence. It's not just there. It happens several times when he shoots the cop and the cop falls backwards. It happens a few times when Petersen eventually shoots him.
Yeah.
I don't know about this sequence. Is it a dream sequence? I'm just going to put this out there.
I don't think so.
Okay, wait a second. Here's my crazy theory that I'm developing. Is Petersen's character Graham out of the mental hospital? Is this whole thing
a fantasy?
A fantasy? Because this is the part of the movie, because we've been going back and forth in like kind of dreamlike sequences to his family, like when he's on the airplane and he sees his family on the boat and they're all wearing blue, and in the end they are all wearing blue again and they're at the beach and everything. Look, it's the one part of the movie that does not feel real. It's the one part of the movie where all of a sudden they've displayed his superhuman strength before, but he gets up and Petersen in slow-mo jumps through during that drum solo the glass, and he catches him midair, and he slashes him up and then throws him against the fridge.
Yeah.
And then he's gone. And then he goes and grabs a gun. Okay, what does he do? He does not shoot Graham on the ground.
Right.
He walks out and shoots a cop that's walking in, as if he knew that the cop was going to walk in the front door.
Well, if he sees Will Graham, he knows who Will Graham is. He's seen him in the Tatler. He's known about him before anyway. He sees him and he knows that if Will Graham is there, there's a whole lot of policemen around.
Through windows.
Yeah, he knows that backup's on their way.
Yeah.
So he's going
to... But production-wise, there's...
Yes, there are some reasons.
There are some reasons. On the commentary, Michael Mann talks about the special effects crew, and I think some of the film crew finished early.
No, he fired them.
He fired them.
He fired them.
They didn't finish early. He literally
That's a very polite way to say that he was fired.
Very, very polite. And then
cut the early bus
they
home.
literally just got like a hose and were blowing blood out the back of his head, and they were just trying to kind of pull the scene together, weren't they? If I recall.
So yeah, it's very accurately true. That's the smooth, eloquent way to say it. They were very, very short on cash, and they only had that day. So later, when we see that unbelievably gorgeous purple horizon. That's actually how the sun looked and everything. Dante Spinotti,
right.
Yes, right, because he said we were shooting this. We had the lights.
The cinematographer for Red Dragon as well.
Oh my God! Yeah. Wow,
he's like the Hannibal Lector guy.
And Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yeah,
I guess I have to see Red Dragon. I think I was put off initially because I was like, how can you remake this? And it's Brett Ratner. I don't know.
Yeah, it might have potential. I haven't seen it, but I've heard
it's all right.
I've heard that it actually has its moments, so it's not terrible.
I liked Hannibal the movie, but but back to the production compromises. So Mann said to the guys, "Okay, well, we don't have good fake blood, so
this is brilliant. I know where you're going. This is excellent."
He goes, "Just go down to like the grocery store and get a whole bunch of meat and get lots of ketchup." So
the blood is ketchup. Meat and ketchup.
And then there's a sort of like nod to that when he shoots and it blows up all the.
And that's one of my favorite shots of the movie, when the eggs and the meat just get shot. It's the thing is, so there's so many of these like little tiny cuts that he goes throughout, which I think are brilliant, because usually you use those as like, I mean, a real change would be a very jarring moment, or you do that to emphasize the power of a punch.
Yes.
But he's almost doing too much in the sequence for me to think that it's not an intentional, like, this is a jarring moment.
It is. And I think in one interview, he said, I might have overused it in this. I don't think so, because it's so, because first off, you're going, wait, what's going on? What's happening? The first time you see it. Because at first, there's an early...
and he busts through the scene of Mars.
That is one of the greatest, because you don't realize that there's a hollow.
But they left Tom Noonan lying there for so long. He was glued to the floor.
No way, really?
Get him off the floor.
Oh my God.
So
that's like one of my favorite things, though, is because like when Tom Noonan eventually comes back, when Francis comes back and he sees Graham and he's going to shoot Graham, and then Graham shoots him a bunch of times with those special bullets, and he has to shoot him like 15 times. He will not come down, and finally he falls down. He becomes the Red Dragon on the floor. And he goes up to him and he raises his gun, because what is he going to do? He's going to shoot him in the head, like the Tooth Fairy did to 8 out of 10 of his victims.
Right.
And he's about to become the Tooth Fairy himself.
Which is why that scene, I think,
himself.
was put in as well. I think that scene that was edited in is almost hinting at, has he gone so far that there is a hint of Dolarhyde's personality in him, and the idea that Graham could become the monster, could become the Tooth Fairy.
So the thing is, I hate dream, like, it's all a dream, so I'm going to throw away my it's all a dream thing. But I am going to stick with, I don't think Petersen needed to jump through the window to save her.
I see. I love that. Because
I think that it's an amazing cinematic moment. I'm so glad he did it, but I don't think his character, because I actually don't think that he's going to kill Reba.
But Graham would not know that, though, because all he sees...
Graham should learn from his mistake of rushing into things too soon, because what does he do? He gets cut up, he gets like 3 cops killed, and the Tooth Fairy is dead. And that's what happened to his second person after Hannibal Lector also. The second person got killed. Like, he killed the second person, I think, too, right?
Well, the cops, one was in a mental hospital and the other one was like on life support or something like that.
That's Hannibal's Lecter's victims, though, right?
Oh, yeah. Yes, right.
Because after he got Hannibal Lecter, he got another serial killer, which they mentioned in passing, but he killed him.
It starts off with that serial killer in the TV series in the first season. And then I think in the Hannibal movie, which is the next one after Silence of the Lambs, it's Mason Verger, who I think is the other one that's hinted at, that's supposed to be in the hospital. Yeah, because that's why he makes him eat his own face. It makes him put his face off, doesn't he, eat it.
And then in Hannibal the movie, it's Ray Liotta with his head open.
That's right.
Oh my God.
At the end,
Rest in peace, Ray Liotta.
Incidentally, really I saw Hannibal in the theater at a 10 p.m. showing. There was a baby or like a 1-year-old that someone brought to the movie.
Starting them young.
Start them young. People. But they were howling and yelping, and finally they left. And I thought, what'd you think? It was a young kid. It wasn't like a baby.
The next serial killer.
Yeah, they were training him. So the serial killer that Michael Mann based a lot of Dolarhyde on for stuff that wasn't in the book was Dennis Wayne Wallace, and Mann spent several years corresponding with him. Wallace he'd been motivated by his obsession for a woman he barely knew, and believed that their special song was Iron Butterflies In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida.
Wow.
Right? And
so that's why he put that in.
Yeah. That's why I put that in. I love that it's on an 8-track as well.
Yeah.
There's something very specific and bizarro about that.
Details are unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like, that's exactly why I'm wondering what is that thing in the opening shot of the movie. Because Mann is so detailed that to put that as your opening shot, and the whole thing about the turtles, like how many of them survived? Yeah. Most of them did. Most of them,
like about life.
About life, most of them.
Human condition.
And the human condition.
Because I thought, you know what, this viewing, I was also confused. I thought, is this a different structure to the end scene than in the theatrical? Because you don't hear Kevin saying, Dad. He just, or maybe you do, but he runs down, and I was like, wait. And I wanted to compare it, but I didn't have time to. But the turtles, I didn't think about that. Well, they're also
lunar. Turtles are also a lunar creature.
Really? Of
course, because they
have to be attracted to
the reflection on the sea.
Wow.
So when they hatch, it's the moon that hatches them. And so it's just like all these lunar things. I'm going to stick with that he's a werewolf.
You are born. You're literally born by moonlight.
Yeah, you're born by moonlight. I'm sticking to it.
He needed essentially silver bullets.
Yeah, essentially, like, I don't even remember. He says, these bullets are like in special casings that have...
They're suspended in liquid. Oh, what is it? Because it's this thing, liquid Teflon. Because Teflon can pierce through, and he said, and the contents will explode inside. They're also, I think, were known as cop killer bullets.
And it still took like 17. I'm going to just keep raising the number. It still took 17 to get the tooth fairy down.
And the tooth fairy got shot 2 to 3 times.
The shots?
No, I'm just going to keep going up. Like it took 25 this time.
That revolver had 25 shots in it. And,
no, it did take like 8. He got shot like 8 times though.
Because he got shot 3 times by the cops that he killed. And I also like the facility that he had with the shotgun. He just grabs it. He's not even thinking about it. Oh my God. And he just goes... completely blank expression, kills the cops. I like, though, that he shoots out the lights.
Yeah, because you know how to do that. Well, because it makes it harder to shoot you.
Yes, exactly. And also the house is bathed in red then.
Yeah. It's so good.
It's so good.
It's like, I'm so glad I ended up rewatching, because I was like, oh, do I need to rewatch this? Yes.
I'm so glad you did too. And I'm glad that I arrived at this one for us, because I was like, what are we going to do?
Yeah, so like, what was the reasoning behind Manhunter being the one that you chose for this?
Well, because it's up there with To Live and Die in L.A., which it's funny because Ada was the one who told me, that's your favorite movie. And I went, yeah, you know what? You're right. It is.
Wait, you didn't know that To Live and Die in L.A. was your favorite movie until Ada pointed it out?
I talked about it all the time.
You did? Yeah. Sorry, Chris.
No, I mean, because I would ask people on the podcast, so what are some of your favorite movies? Which is like a perfect question for people to freeze and forget.
It's your perfect question right now.
I have a holy trinity. It's Jaws, The Thing, Blade Runner. Jaws, The Thing, Blade Runner. If I was to choose...
choose your favorite.
My favorite monster movie would... right, my favorite movie point to my head, Jaws. Yeah. It is Jaws.
Okay, so Jaws, Bugsy Malone, no questions asked.
Bugsy Malone,
I think everyone knows that, though.
I think I heard on your show that Paul Thomas Anderson was at the matinee.
Yeah, someone told me that PTA was at the matinee of that.
Was that a recent one or one from years ago?
Must have been years ago.
He was at the one I was at, that Lisa Bonet was at. That it was jam packed with cool people.
No, Bugsy Malone is definitely my favorite of all time.
The print wasn't so hot.
It's okay. However, I don't care.
Yeah, you like the rotted laser disc.
I do love my disc with laser rot. Yes, I do.
Oh, speaking of which, Michael Mann, in an interview or many interviews, talks about the superiority of digital shooting. And the hilarious thing is, I remember people being like, wow, Collateral in 35. And I thought, I'm going to stay home, because he has gone on record many times saying, well, that was early digital video and the photochemical prints are terrible. He said they're all smudgy and blurry. I was
going to say, because to be honest, one of his weaker parts of a film that he's done is anything at night time in Public Enemies looks terrible.
Really? I haven't seen that one. Terrible. That's one I have to see.
It's, some of his weakest filming. I don't think the film overall is weak. It's good. Yeah. It's worth watching. But
he said
it's very early on though.
Well, I was going to say, I'm always a champion for like seeing things on film if possible, but if the movie was shot digitally, there's no point for me.
I agree.
I honestly, I think if it's shot on film, there's a point to go see it on film. But if it's shot digitally, you might as well just watch a DCP.
Yeah, that's what I think. Also, by the way, the DCP of Sorcerer is fabulous, and I enjoyed it more than that legendary 4-track mag print.
I am not allowed to see 4-track mag in theaters. It is too loud for me. I get uncomfortable. It's like...
Do you think it was maybe just that movie because it was cranked up real loud? And
well, 4-track mag, I think it's just the 4-track mag.
Really, though? Have you never...
I haven't seen any other 4-track
That's
mag.
the thing. Listen, the next time there's a 4-track mag,
I was also in the third row.
Big mistake. Also, because it's 4-track mag. I was sitting in the front row going, what the fuck am I doing? It's 4-track mag. I can't even hear half the fucking thing because it's back in the...
Yeah.
I have new favorite seats.
Oh.
I have new favorite seats. And
Update us.
I will. And no one take these seats when I'm going to a film. Because Phil held these seats when Ada and I went to see... Oh,
that's so nice.
Ladies
Thanks,
and Gentlemen,
Phil. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you very much, Phil. I even said, Phil, I'm so sorry. You know I sit in the same seats all the time. I have no idea what row it is. He sent me a seating chart.
Oh, yeah. The glorious seating chart.
Is this at the new Bev?
Yeah, the
new Bev.
What on earth? That is unbelievable.
I know.
It is. Thank you, Phil. And I hope I didn't get you in trouble by saying that. I might have to redact this because it's a secrecy.
Beep.
Yeah.
Just a big thank you to Phil and no reason why.
Phil, thank you very much. Just for everything, really. And for the noise label that you put, the cassette label that you put noise records out. That's all we were talking about. Yeah. The chart of the upcoming releases. But my favorite seats are now on the right-hand side. They used to be on the far left.
Okay.
But I realize now...
When you're facing the screen.
Yeah. And,
okay.
Right. Well, yeah.
Because I sit on the right side.
Yeah, so the side you sit on, but now I love... I used to sit on the left-hand side. That started in the marathon times because the sight lines, sometimes they're not conducive to me not seeing someone's hair flip around, and that I can't be taken out of a movie. Someone was talking to me, a younger relative, about, I said, I hate talking during movies, and they kind of looked bashful. I said, no, whatever. I mean, just don't do it around me. And they said, well, if I don't, I can't really pay attention after 45 minutes. I have to look at my phone. And I said, well,
oh my God.
Here's the thing. I have severe ADHD and I can do that. And I said, that's one of the reasons I cannot stand when people take me out of a movie, because I'm like, motherfucker, I'm applying myself here because it's more rewarding. And you can't, people just don't want to hear that because they don't want to be told, no, you're not trying. At all.
They're not. Craig, no. I went to go see, it was the AMC, so I don't know what my expectations were.
All movies corrupted.
Well, when I go to the AMC, I stopped to brawl at Trolls World Tour, at the animated movie Trolls World Tour. I stopped to brawl from happening. So that's the kind of AMC I'm in.
Wow.
But I went to a 10:30 p.m. showing of that movie Book of Clarence. Didn't really like the movie so much, but
is that the one where the guy plays a beekeeper?
No, I love The Beekeeper.
No, never mind.
Oh my God.
I wrote her when she said, I'm going to take my mom to see The Beekeeper. And I said, oh, is that like a new animated film? I had not any idea what it was.
It's Jason Statham. Yeah, oh my God, I
so,
love The Beekeeper.
But that's just how out of the loop I am.
But I went to go see
The Beekeeper.
I'm The Beekeeper. I went to go see Book of Clarence with a friend. He wanted to see it, so we went. 10:30 p.m. showing. We sit down. The only people in the theater sit right next to us. And it's 3 adults and then a child, maybe 6 years old. Okay. This movie, it's a rendition of, there is a crucifixion in it, and it's a stoner comedy, a Jesus stoner comedy.
What's it called again?
Book of Clarence.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so about when the crucifixion happens, all of a sudden, this kid was throwing his candy on me. I don't care. I'm like, whatever, it's a kid. During the crucifixion scene, he gets out his phone and starts playing those me so yummy TikTok videos
oh my God.
Me so yummy but the fruit emojis with him, and keeps flipping through them on full volume. And then my friend starts getting really pissed off and then played Aqua Barbie Girl, the Spanish language version edition.
Oh my God.
On full volume during the crucifixion.
That is so wrong.
And then started moving his seat forward and backwards nonstop. So I just started doing it with him.
Yeah.
Because I might as well entertain him.
Yeah, you might as well.
The parents were there and just actually handed him the phone on full volume. I know.
That is crazy. I mean, that's degenerate parent.
What do I expect at a 10:30 showing of Book of Clarence at the AMC?
See, this is the thing.
I'm sure that's not a PG either, is it? I mean, how old are these kids? So then they're just taking
6 years. Yeah.
Come on.
It was inappropriate all around.
The next serial killers.
Yeah, well, that's serial killer behavior right there.
And then after we walked out of the theater, when we walked out of the theater, my friend was complaining, and the little kid looked back and just smiled, and then walked away. He knew. That little 6-year-old knew what he was doing.
Well, one time
made my night. By the way, if anyone wants to look it up, Aqua Barbie Girl in Spanish is amazing.
I guess that adds some flavor to a film. It wouldn't have helped with Altered States, though. I know you had a traumatic.
Oh my god,
screening.
during Altered States, no, any like little blip for Altered States, I was having a traumatic experience.
Well, I get that.
No.
By the way, in the theater, there is one laugh beat in this, which I don't take as a laugh beat personally, but I know I'm a little bit more sour about these things than some people. When it's proven that Graham is right about the print on the eyeball, Farina is staring at the guy who is poo-pooing it the whole time. He's like, oh, yeah, what? And he's doing this whole bit. And I love that because Farina's intimidating and he's staring at him, basically saying, go fuck yourself. But people like were roaring with laughter. And I was like, okay, it's tense. All right, okay, the kids can laugh. But they were good the rest of the time, which was good.
It's funny, it wouldn't be when the guy from the Tattler's there. I would think that would be the comic relief of the movie.
Which, with Louns?
Yeah, with Louns.
Well, maybe, but he's so repellent, and also we know almost instantly how much Will hates him when he, in one of my favorite moments, where we really see the brutality.
I didn't laugh at that, by the way. At
no,
character or anything in the movie.
I'm not.
Just disclaimer.
Don't worry, I'm not calling the authorities. Don't worry. Anything you say here is fine.
Thank you.
Fine.
It's a safe space.
Exactly. It is. It is. Even though Rich is in your seat, it's okay. It's all right.
We swapped.
Oh,
Yeah. Well, you're the guest. You're the guest of this country as well. So I love so Louns, he's annoying, he's obnoxious. But then when he picks him up by the tie and flips him around and breaks the windshield.
With the superhuman strength that the Tooth Fairy happens to also have.
Yes. And it's a flash of that Will coming out there. I love that. But that guy is so scumbaggy. Then when Lector says, oh, well, Will, I'm sure you enjoyed the Louns, or he said something, you weren't sad about that, were you? You enjoyed it. You were only sad about the fact that you enjoyed it so much. And I don't know, I wouldn't mind that much if the guy that took photos of me when I was unconscious and all cut
like
up
naked,
died like
basically.
that. Yeah. And wait, doesn't the guy not die fully until he's in the ICU?
Yeah, he says something, like mumbles something, and then passes out, does not wake up.
Off camera.
Which is why I thought maybe it was his tongue, because it's like incoherently.
Yeah.
But I guess a lip would also do that.
Yeah.
Also, the reveal, of the flaming wheelchair.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
That is iconic.
Yes, it really is. You were going to say...
I was going to say, just to add to my dream theory, which I've thrown out completely since we sat down.
Now you're bringing it back.
Well, Hannibal Lector, one of the things that he says is, dream much, Will.
Oh, right.
And so that's kind of what got me started on it, because he's kind of doing the whole thing of like, are you dreaming? And then Will is saying it's in his dreams. It's in his dreams. He sees it in his dreams.
Right.
And so that's kind of why I started thinking, okay, well, like, is he out of this mental hospital that he was placed in? Is he dreaming this whole thing up? Is he back on the street?
There's definitely something in it.
I'd rather go with the werewolf theory, though.
But I think it's more to do with, the moments where there's a space between worlds that they share, where once they delve into that area that's been created of the white light and to figure out the crime that they both see. They see it in the same way. There is the glow. There is the kind of eyes.
Yes.
Yeah.
There is all of that connects them. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, because Will can see the reflective.
Well, this is it, and that's yet another thing. Now you have to. In order for him to solve the crime, he is having to dream it. He is having to be able to see and figure out exactly what that killer has done.
Yeah.
So it's not like it goes into it in the sort of detail of watching something like Blood Splatter Experts, or there is something that is just bordering on the supernatural.
Yeah.
Just enough to kind of go, okay, this is the device that I am going to use to show the detective trying to figure out how the killer is solving the crime. Because and I think that's very much something of literature, isn't it? It's very much like you've got to get inside a character's head. So how do we do that? Well, obviously detective stories are the best for that. That's why they have that scenario and the exposition of here's the cassette tape and he's talking into it and he's figuring out the crime.
And the writing of that is just masterful, and the fact that Mann adapted it from the novel, it's like he really was in the movie himself, and he really was obviously interviewing serial killers and getting really involved. But
I like to add, corresponding For years.
Well, that makes me wonder. Like, let's go back a little bit. 4 years. He was off doing The Keep. He must have been corresponding with the serial killer while he was doing The Keep. And I think about it, like, he did Thief. And Thief is, like, such a great movie. Like, it changed that's an amazing movie. It changed everything. And then he does The Keep, which obviously, like, Roger and Quentin talked a lot about on Video Archives. And, like, it was a disaster.
Total disaster.
People were...
The sound alone, I mean, the sound is so fucked up and bad on it.
I know.
They didn't even let him do that.
And then he goes and does Miami Vice, which, as you guys were saying earlier, changes the entire face of television. And then does Manhunter, which is so masterfully done.
Yeah.
And it just makes you wonder, like, what really happened with The Keep? Because he has all of these things that are, like, so powerfully chosen. And it's like, okay, now all of a sudden he's corresponding with a serial killer for years. Like, while he's making The Keep, he's...
I know. And also the intense darkness in all of his films, but particularly... Well, and also Thief is basically about capitalism, essentially. If you boil it down to that, the workers being exploited by the man or whatever, and again, the technical accuracy,
the man with two N's. The man and a hunter,
right? And I was going to say, a friend of mine, the guy I used to work with, lovely guy, worked as PA or something on the set of Public Enemies, and he said that much like Friedkin and his tendency to be like, what the fuck is going on? Mann was like that when he walked into a scene where, I don't know, it's a restaurant or something, and everyone had period costumes, but everyone had a hat. And he walked in and he said, who the fuck is wearing... Do you ever go into a restaurant and see everyone wearing a fucking hat? Take that one off, take the yellow one off. But he was specific. He was like, that one over there. But he was like very... hot-tempered.
He's intentional, and also he's a very intentional filmmaker, as we've kind of outlined. So what went wrong with The Keep? Like, what was going on with that? I just can't stop thinking about it, just because I see Thief, I know about Miami Vice, and I see Manhunter.
And also Thief is so brilliant. I mean, even in the Video Archives discussion, there is that discussion that the thing, Thief is so incredible. Everyone's so gassed up to see it who saw that contemporaneously. Then The Keep, they're like, what the fuck is that? And that could have ended his career.
Because, and it didn't. No, because he was so smart, went to television.
Yeah, very smart. And then also, but then still implemented those very strict color codes. Also, season 2 shifts, and then it's emerald greens. Like, there's not just one color code.
Season 2, what does it shift to? It's emerald green.
Purples.
So it shifts to Manhunter.
Yes, it shifts to Manhunter colors.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the third season, the last season, the rotten season, it's all earth tones.
Yeah.
And Don Johnson's wearing a girdle because he quit smoking and he picked up Haagen-Dazs. Well, no, it's funny. It's funny.
I should laugh.
There's something.
I mean, he wasn't that old.
No, he wasn't, but he put on a bit of weight because
of obvious that
and also he had maybe dipped in and out of substance abuse again. The whole Melanie Griffith rematch. But and to reference another film that Rich and I are going to be doing a movie club on, Fear City, Mann hired Abel Ferrara to do 2 episodes, one of which is called The Home Invaders.
Yes.
Very disturbing.
Wow. Yes.
Very disturbing. So even though he didn't direct every episode, it was his imprimatur.
I met Ferrara.
Oh my God!
When I was like 15, Dad and I were at a film festival in France. I think we were in Deauville, the Deauville Film Festival, and I was down in the lobby, and there was this old man who did not have a computer charger, and so I just walked up to him and was like, "Oh, would you like to borrow mine?" Because my dad had one and I had one, and he said thanks, and it was Abel Ferrara, and I didn't know who he was, and so I became Abel Ferrara and his I think it's his wife now, Shannon.
Okay.
His friend. It was when 444 was coming out, and I had to watch 444 next to it's Willem Dafoe, isn't it? And and Abel's wife Shannon, and they have the most intense sex scene for like 15 minutes at the beginning of the movie.
In an Abel Ferrara film.
In an Abel Ferrara film, and I had to sit.
I mean,
but I had to sit next to Shannon as she clutched my hand while we watched her. Yeah, while we watched her with Willem Dafoe.
Oh my word!
It was very intense. I'll never forget 444: The End of the World.
I can imagine.
By Abel Ferrara, and he gave me back my charger, so all is well.
In the 70s, I became interested in a lot of bogus procedures which were showing up in the penal system. And one of them was something called stereotactic surgery, where a couple of neurosurgeons were trying to sell the state that if they drilled into the brains of mentally disturbed people, that in particularly targeted points in the amygdala that they could modify behavior. And somebody sued the state of California to get this procedure done to them, because his intent was to manipulate the not terribly bright state psychologists into writing in his psych jacket what he wanted written. And he was so good at doing this that by answering questions certain ways, he could change his profile in his records. And so he, this guy's name was Dennis Wynn Wallace. And so I kind of pursued an interview with him and came to meet him and met him on 2, 3, or 4 occasions. And he had killed 3 or 4 people and had walked around with a hard hat that had a Mad Magazine sticker on it that said, "Support mental illness or I'll kill you," and in a hearse. And he became a very powerful character for me, and led to why I did Red Dragon or Manhunter. And he was a victim of not child abuse, but infant abuse and child abuse. And it's an absolute total horror story of a 3-year-old kid chained to trees, beaten. I mean, and so he was manufactured from abuse. And his story can't help but break your heart as a child. As an adult, he's fully responsible for his actions and belonged exactly where he was, which is in Vacaville. And it leads Graham to that moment when he says to Dennis Farina, Jack Crawford, when he says, as a child, my heart bleeds for him because he was manufactured into who he became. He was beaten. He then went through the normal cycle of doing things like torturing pets, and then you bestow tremendous regret and remorse on the pet you've just tortured, as if you're acting out what's happened to you, and the kind of remorse that you'd like your parents to show who've just abused you. And things like wrapping yourself in aluminum foil to stave off the waves that are coming from the planet Vega, which make you do bad things. There's a set of these. And so Graham says to Crawford, he says to him, as a child, my heart goes out for my and bleeds for him. As an adult, I blow the sick fuck out of his socks and I think twice about it. And then he looks at Crawford and says, "Does that disturb you, Jack? Because it's a contradiction. But courage is to maintain, authenticity is to maintain the contradiction, because both are true." And that's kind of what I picked up from Dennis Wynn Wallace. And I thought that plus a whole number of other things, including all his the schemata of his delusions, was more fascinating than the Dolarhyde that had been written in the book. So Dolarhyde is really based on Dennis.
Gala had a burning question that I think I evaded earlier.
So, okay, why did you pick Manhunter?
Well, I actually have an answer for this one, unlike when you asked me, what does To Live and Die in LA mean to me, which I am going to come
I'll ask you that again later.
Oh, I know, and I'm happy about that. I'm really happy we're going to do supplementals, because I thought, how could I not come up with something about that? Because I have something for this, which is part of the reason why I wanted to pick it, which I realized later. I realized that most of my favorite films and favorite directors, Friedkin, Michael Mann, Scorsese, De Palma, even though some people say his stuff is more about style than substance, I don't agree with that. There's something about the evil that lurks in all men, but also the good as well, like how everyone is shades of gray. So we have in this Will Graham and
apart from Hannibal, who's a shade of bright white.
Yes, that's right. Well,
he is very clear about what he is.
Well, I also like something in there, and this is not exactly why, and I'd forgotten about it, but they said, well, what about sodium pentothal? And they said, we gave it to him in the murder of this, to solve the murder or the location of this dead body, and he gave us a recipe for potato chip dip. So he's resistant to anything and everything. But he's almost like a superpower or something. But this is another film that's about the vagueness of human nature. Now, this viewing, I'm watching that scene that is excised from the theatrical cut, which in this viewing did have a resonance to me, because he is this haunted version, the version that when back in the day, he had to get put into the mental hospital because of all these ugly thoughts, the ugliest thoughts that you could even imagine, as he says to Kevin. and then it cuts to them on the beach. And the way that it works, or the way that it does work in this instance, is that it's that thing of like thinking about like the negative thoughts that you might have, but then you sort of overcome them to be cheerful or say, no, that's not what I want to be, or like cognitive behavioral therapy or something like that. So, and with Friedkin, there's always are they good or are they bad? What's going on with this person? So there's something about that human nature that I like a lot.
Shades of Grey.
The Shades of Grey. Don't you think that the birth of the serial killer in terms of a study, if you like, and then ending up as a device in a film starts to become something used to explore just that? Because as soon as they start to delve into the mind of the killer, the whole point of that was to break apart what makes a person that way. It's never black and white. Never black and white. No. If you want black and white monsters, then in both aspects, then go and watch an old movie, but also everything had to have clarity. There couldn't be anything muddy, because they didn't want to traumatize the children. They needed something very clear to say, this is good, this is evil.
Yeah.
Whereas with a serial killer, you are always delving into what makes them that way,
like
whether
why?
It's
because
Norman Bates,
and everyone is a child inside.
Yeah, exactly.
As they said, and I love that line. They took a kid and manufactured a monster, and it's exactly that. And that's the shade of gray, because I feel for the child inside.
Yes,
but the adult deserves to be put away. And it also, like, it reminds me of Tarsem Singh's movie The Cell, like that whole,
what a film,
which is such a great movie. And I got to see that at the LF3. It was such a wonderful experience seeing that on.
That's
the
very
big screen.
underrated.
It was a very underrated movie.
So it's the one with Jennifer Lopez?
Yes, with J-Lo.
I saw it in the theater on original release.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I actually really like the movie.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I actually really love the movie, and but that's another thing with the serial killer. It's like you have someone and you feel for them, kind of like everyone inside of themselves has that child who has been abused, and you see it a lot of times. Bullies are there in schools because they were bullied, or like maybe their dad bullies them or does a lot worse to them, and they take it out on you. And there's that whole chain, like the boss yells at the dad yells at the mom yells at the kid kicks the dog bites the boss, and then the chain just continues. And so it's like everyone has that in them.
And also like generational trauma, or the cycles of abuse and all that. And also you could look at Will and Dolarhyde. We don't know Will's background.
No.
Maybe Will had similar issues or obstacles to get over.
Again, they're very brief sketches.
Yeah,
all the characters. They feel, and it's surprising actually when you're watching the film, and even more so when you read the book, that how am I visualizing this so clearly as I am? Because Harris is so economical.
Yeah.
With what he's actually writing, and the whole thing about the dialogue that I mentioned.
Well, that's another thing that reminds me of To Live and Die in LA. And of course, it's not just because Bill Petersen, my good buddy Bill, but that Bill Petersen is in both. But they're both these character studies that you have to imagine a lot of the backstory, really, of their character. You're inferring it from the stylistic choices, which were panned at the time as, again, style over substance. When you look at Brian De Palma's films, Body Double being one of my favorites of all time, that it's using the movie stuff, but it's also like using it as a device to talk about this spineless guy,
or a device for the actor, at least.
Yes.
If the director is going to make profiles of characters, of what happened before the film story starts and afterwards, it at least gives the actors to work on. Or in some cases, the actors bring that with them. They research and delve so much into the characters that they want to do their homework, and they want to write their own little profiles of that character. That's always interesting.
Nick Nolte wrote a 200-page novel for the backstory for Pete Bell, the coach in Blue Chips, whereas Friedkin, when talking about backstories and
he
stuff,
couldn't give a fuck about.
No. And he uses the example of Tommy Lee Jones coming in and saying,
in The Hunted.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I just talk to the actors. I just talk to them, make sure we're on the same page, make sure they understand, that they have a psychological underpinning for their characters, and that I can bring about a staging that works, that they understand and they feel comfortable with. And you'll find that different actors have different ways of working. Like I did a film with Tommy Lee Jones and Benicio del Toro, The Hunted, and they work totally differently. Like with Tommy Lee Jones, who is a really brilliant guy, I would say that I would not say anything to him about his character. I cast him. He knew the guy he was playing. He knew what to do. And I would just say, look, you come in that door over there. You come over here. You say something to her. You sit down over here. You get up. You go over there. You stop and think. Then you come back, say something else. Then you go out the door. He said, let me see if I have that right. I come in that door, I say something to her, then I sit down here, I think, I go over there, think a little more, come back, say something to her, then I leave. That's it. He'd say to the assistant cameraman, he said, son, come here, put a mark over there, put a mark over here, put a mark over there, I'm ready. And we'd shoot it, and it was perfect. With Benicio del Toro, I'd say, he said, why do I have to come in the door? He said, can I be found lying on the floor? And what did my character do when he was 12 years old? I don't know, you know. And you'd have to, like, make up a lot of shit for some actors. You just make stuff up to make them feel comfortable or like they're really thinking. The whole thing is they got to be cast right. If they're not cast right... Well, I did a film with Nick Nolte. And what he did at that time was he would write like a 300-page novel about his character and give it to the director to read. And I started to read this stuff. I thought, this is horrible. And I threw it away, and I see him the next, did you read that? Yeah, what'd you think? Great. Okay, now you come in the door.
Also, in the Friedkin film, you are inferring a lot about chance. Now, in the book, the clumsiest writing ever, I got to the sequence you were talking about. We'll talk about that in that movie club. But yes, the graphic sex stuff, I was like, this is...
that's what made me put down the book.
I was like, that was awfully prudish of Gala. No, it wasn't.
It kind of made me feel bad about myself.
Gala's got class.
Yeah, I have class. It made
and likes good writing.
It made me actually feel bad about myself as a woman, that sequence in To Live and Die in LA, the novel, because it is the thought of a man that is just sleeping his way through lots and lots of women and has no regard whatsoever. And that's the character we're supposed to relate to in the book, and I just disconnected completely from it.
There's no one to relate to in the book, really, which some can say, yeah, but that's the charm of it. No, it's poorly written, and Friedkin still saw something in it and then made this masterpiece. But with that, you don't know the backstories of Chance. There's lots of dialogue that are in the scenes that are in the movie that you don't need to know. You don't know that they are Vietnam vets. You don't know that that Bill Pankow, as we like to call him, is getting a divorce. They even shot that scene and they cut it out. I can't even finish watching that scene because I'm like, that's not the movie. That's not real. But
we don't need to know.
No, we don't need to know.
It becomes a subtle texture often, and it's not. If it's not needed,
then why?
It will still remain in some way because it's imprinted somewhere in the way the characters are designed, in the way that they actually guide the story.
Exactly,
so
and I think
it's not needed. You can tell the actor, well, in the book this happens as a shorthand, and the actor will interpret that just for a look sometimes.
Or they'll come up with their own thing.
Exactly.
And sometimes the things that the actors come up with are better than the things in the original source material. And I'm of the camp that a movie adaptation does not need to follow plot or story-wise necessarily the original material, just in spirit.
Because they both exist.
They both exist. They will both always exist, and you can take the same material and make 100 different movies out of it.
Well,
like The Shining,
Blade Runner is a prime example. One of my favorites. It's the spirit is there. There's elements of it, but Ridley Scott, in the grand design of it all, came up with something which was even
completely
better.
And I love that about cinema. And so I have to kind of ask, because this is a Hannibal Lecter story. Is this your favorite Hannibal Lecter story?
I don't think it is a Hannibal Lecter story.
But it
It's an introduction to the character, but I wouldn't say it's a Hannibal Lecter story. No, because he's not in it enough.
So you wouldn't compare it to something like Silence of the Lambs?
Oh, I would, absolutely.
Okay. Oh, that is a Hannibal. But I find them that they're in the same vein, though.
But in some ways, not even Silence of the Lambs
is a Hannibal.
Could be considered a Hannibal Lecter story, because it's always about...
What's about Clarice and that?
And it's always about the other serial killer.
Who is based on Candace DeLong, one of my favorite all-time detectives, is who they based Clarice on.
I did not know that.
Yeah, Candace DeLong. I love her. She's amazing. But I always wonder, though, because I feel like people... When Hannibal Lecter's in a movie, they typically say, "Oh, it's a Hannibal Lecter story," because it kind of comes from the same source, the seed.
It's the pop culture element of it. I think, and similar to what we were talking about the other day, is the monsters that become something that everybody knows about, whether they've seen those films or not. Not everybody has seen Silence of the Lambs. It's not going to be their cup of tea. They're never going to watch it.
But you said earlier,
absolutely have heard. Yeah, they will have heard of Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah,
and I think they use that. They want it to be a Hannibal Lecter.
I just have to, as a quick aside, I love in Silence of the Lambs when she has that whole thing with Hannibal Lecter, and then you see her Pinto. And if you don't know what a Pinto is, you're not going to understand like her motivation, her backstory.
Yeah.
And the first time I saw the movie, I didn't recognize that it was a Pinto. And then my dad, the second time, said, "Oh, it's a Pinto." And I'm like,
it out.
And he pointed, it's a Pinto specifically. And I was like, oh, okay. So she comes from, that car is going to explode. It's like a low, like she comes from nothing.
Yes.
And she's trying her best. Yeah. And when you don't have the context, because it's been so many years removed and you don't really understand what a Pinto is.
Yeah.
When I was little, I wanted a Pinto so bad. I'm so lame. I in science class, I modeled this wooden car that to look like a Pinto, and I got like an F in the class because it was supposed to be as fast as it could go, like aerodynamic, and Pintos are not aerodynamic.
But there's a prime example though of if you're looking at someone like Clarice Starling against Will Graham.
Yeah.
By that point, Harris's and what is inherited into the film is Jonathan Demme, isn't it?
Yes.
If I recall. Yeah. Jonathan Demme uses more character development.
Yeah.
She is a far more rounded character. It's only in the Hannibal TV series really that Will Graham is fleshed out, and it goes beyond. I would say it goes beyond the novels, and it goes into all sorts of areas that are explored, and obviously with the series it's the queer elements and the gender swapping of characters. Louns, by the way, is a female.
Interesting.
And
also I have to, before I forget, in the sequence with Louns and the Tooth Fairy, it's so disturbing the way he gently touches his hair. He caresses his hair, which is another thing that maybe goes to your...
I'm going to go back to this, like the queer element thing, because this is not my forte in cinema, but I'm just going to bring it up. Okay, so I have not seen a Hannibal TV series.
Oh, it's full on. Because Fuller, I think, is homosexual, if I recall.
Well, we don't like to talk about gay things on this show, so...
Oh, no. Get out of here. Get out of here. But so who in the TV series is the gay relationship? Like, what is... or
Hannibal is in love with Will Graham, but it's not... There is articles out there, so nobody accuses the series of being queer baiting at all. It's really well done because of over 3 seasons. The relationship between Hannibal and Will is so intricate and worked out, and it until that final scene, which I spoke about earlier,
with the
embracement of it is. Up to the final moment, you are thinking, my God, and they are really holding each other. It is like this, and they are bleeding over each other. And then that final shot is incredible, and they go over the cliff, and that's the end. And it couldn't be any more obvious, but it's so well drawn out. It's not like it's bashing you over the head, and that becomes a distraction.
Yeah,
it's. And to design it in that way to increase the audience, it's there.
It's done because it's done well.
Yeah, and I also think, I mean, I can't say for the other novels because I've not read them, and certainly not Silence of the Lambs because that was heavily criticised, if anything to do with If I recall,
right.
to do.
Yes, it was.
I'm not going to go into that.
Well, no, people say it's transphobic.
Yeah, absolutely. The opposite. But it's clever and it's really well done. And I think because you invest yourself in hours and hours with these characters, you believe it. And Mads Mikkelsen, I know it's going to come up in this episode, and it already has by some of the questions I'm sure that are being asked.
Oh, yeah,
who is the best Hannibal Lector?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the questions.
Well,
yeah.
Do I have answers?
Yeah. If we're talking just about the films and ignoring the TV, then obvious. But Mads Mikkelsen is astonishing. He's so good as Hannibal in what he brings to that role and where it goes and the subtleties. And right up to those final moments. Will Graham, on the other hand, the first season, he's so irritating in the way that the actor, what he does with him. And it's not until the second season you can kind of tell they've almost reassessed it and they kind of tone him down and sort of push his personality back down a little bit more. Yeah, amazing, really.
I also just thought of how the movie is 2 hours or 2 hours, 2 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it just whisks along.
It's 2 hours, and exactly in the middle, they introduce the tooth fairy in the flesh. It's amazing.
I think that's another thing Mann does incredibly well. He can have what most people, especially in this day and age, would consider a long movie. Yeah.
Gala loves an 88-minute, I'm out of here.
70-minute
contractual
Western.
requirements.
He can do over 2.5 hours and still make a film feel like it's an hour and a half. Heat feels like an hour and a half.
Well, it's not only that, but you can rewatch it and still it feels like it's a short movie.
Yeah.
Like seeing Manhunter a second time, it's like I was thinking, I'm gonna like know everything that's happening, and I'm still on the edge of my seat. Did you want to say something about the sound in the movie?
Yes. Well, there's a song that's in it and I didn't think about it in relation to this until you guys mentioned it. Heartbeat. Like heartbeat, listen to my heartbeat.
Is that that's playing when they're having
sex? It's the end song.
It's the end song, but
it's the one that ties those elements of where it's about how she sees and it's about the sensual elements of it, and the heartbeat. But that's what she's ultimately feeling for with the tiger as well.
Yes,
because it ends
it's
on
the heartbeat,
that. It's the heartbeat,
and then that it's again the beast, the animal.
I know he's a psycho killer, but I just can't help but love them together in those moments.
Well, the thing
there was hope for him.
There was.
Well, that's the thing. It's like that sliding doors thing almost. A film I've never seen, but it's great that that's just become the thing we refer to it as. But that's another aspect of the movie is you see this other side of Dolarhyde, and it is completely unexpected that you will feel anything for him. At first time I saw it, I think I was just scared for the woman. And then things are progressing in a certain way. You see him also completely not knowing what to do, but then joyful or feeling the sensuality. And you could tell it's a very new thing to him. So I don't know what kind of sexual life he's had before, but besides voyeurism. And Gala had mentioned on her top 10 new discoveries, something that I'd brought up to her before. One of the moments that most resonated with me is the distorted lens, because this is another thing, we can all have distorted lens. So as you said, the serial killer mindset is sort of a way into thinking about what goes on in people's heads. But the distorted lens is something that can affect everyone. Oh, I think they don't like me because they look this way at them. Sometimes you can see things completely distorted because of what your what's the word? Your presumption
or your perception of yourself, even.
Yes, and ingrained biases against yourself or whatever. But there's it's such a blatant what's the word? Not obscene, explicit. An explicit example of that is him looking at it, and the way that Mann telegraphs that, and the lighting is different. The whole thing, the look on the face, it's almost as if she can see him.
Yeah. It's like it's so far removed, and he's not just seeing a dream, he's seeing his nightmare. He is seeing through a distorted lens of like all of his deepest insecurities, that she doesn't really like me, or she is kind of like this with everyone, or
she was lying to me.
She was lying to me. What is so special about me? I'm ugly.
Yes.
I'm ugly. No one would want to feel this face. No one would want to see this face.
But we're kind of blind to him anyway for an hour of the movie. He's like, because it's following the structure of a classic monster movie. movie where you're not going to see that creature for the first 40 minutes. In this case, it's like half the movie without him. He's just spoken about by the police, and we are getting brief details about what he may have done or may not have done, which again, talking about earlier, if we don't see it, is it scarier? Absolutely. We're picturing who the tooth fairy is and what it's like.
They show that giant jaw with
like,
the
oh my God, what is this?
As soon as we see him, it immediately makes him a human being.
As soon as we see him without
the mask over his face.
But
it's also,
don't forget, the first time we do actually see him, he is monstrous.
Yes, exactly.
And they choose that actress that is very, very small. I know I think they say 6'7" in the movie.
But it's Louns, isn't it? Is it Louns when we see him
when we first see him?
No, I'm sorry, when we first see him without the mask, though. When he's in the photochemical lab and the woman walks up to him and he stands up.
He's giant.
He's huge. And we expect her to be afraid, and she isn't.
She seems actually maybe attracted to him.
Like he's tall and maybe sensitive. And it's interesting because the women that he comes across kind of, I think, do identify that he is kind of tall, successful, maybe handsome in their eyes, sensitive, hardworking, a provider, et cetera, protector. But he is so caged in by how he sees himself that he can't identify that all these women are kind of actually attracted to him.
And I think that's another thing that is relatable to anyone who wants to see it. Now, when you mentioned that scene being one of your favorites, as I said to you, I was like, I've never heard anyone mention that. And it's one of my favorite scenes too. I remember getting tearful when I saw it at the midnight screening, because maybe it was because it was the power of that soundtrack and the visuals in an inescapable format, which is the cinema at proper loud volume. The film should be played loud, incidentally. And I hope you didn't watch it on your VHS player. I just want to say.
I did not.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
I promise.
Okay, good.
But maybe I will.
Well, now it's fine. I
think Elric gave me a copy of Manhunter, but I did not watch that copy, if I remember correctly.
Oh, the Carl Home Video VHS?
I think he gave me a copy of it. I don't know. I'm going to go home and check.
Yeah. Well, it certainly wasn't the Laserdisc.
No,
Am I pointing the right way?
Yeah,
good.
Is this a good opportunity to talk about Tom Noonan and how good he is and what he brings
and I'd like to lead that in with a film that also stars one of your favorites, Mr. Sarandon.
Oh,
Chris Sarandon.
Mr. Chris Sarandon.
Yes.
Another Star Trek player, by the way. He's in an episode of DS9.
Yes, God, I think we've spoken about I'm sure in the last interview we did together.
I will speak about Chris Sarandon all the time. And Star Trek, obviously.
I think it behooves you to.
Yes.
He and Noonan co-star in the Jay Leno, Pat Morita classic Collision Course, which is so god-awful. I'm doing a small piece on it.
I have to see this
Yes,
film.
you do. I will send you the file.
All right, brilliant.
I have it on VHS. It is wretched and wretched and wretched.
Wretched? That's an interesting choice of words that I don't hear you use very often.
I usually say terrible, which connotes a bad film that is wonderful to watch. That terrible is a specific thing. Horrendous is you've heard that.
Beast.
Yeah, its own beast. Garbage festival, but
that's
never.
A good thing.
Yeah, it is. It's a party. It's fun. But,
it's with friends.
Yes, exactly. But Chris Sarandon plays the mob boss, and Tom Noonan plays one of his underlings. And
what year are we talking?
I think almost the same year as this. So can you imagine going from that set to this set to that set? Interesting. Probably a little lighter. Probably a little easier to deal with. Oh, and by the way, when Noonan sat in his trailer in the dark, sometimes Mann would come in and just sit with him in the silence.
Yes, that's on the commentary as well, I think. Yeah.
Would they also read the letters from the serial killer together?
No, they just sit in silence in the dark.
I would love to see those letters between Michael Mann and that serial killer.
Yeah.
That would be an amazing book to publish, or some kind of, I hope they're archived somewhere safe.
It's Michael Mann. I have a feeling.
They're in his wardrobe in a box.
I gotta get in there.
No, they're in the closet and they're never mailed, just like in Cruising.
Often.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is. So you were talking about Noonan's incredible performance, and
theater again.
Well, yeah, that's right. He's a big theater guy.
He's a big theater
literally
guy.
Big, and also a big theater guy.
Most of his films, which one was it? Last Action Hero.
I love Last Action
Hero. Me too.
He did that film, and that funded the film he wrote, directed, and starred in.
Oh wow!
After that, is it what happened is. I can't remember what the name.
I can look it up because I have my laptop actually on my lap,
it out.
which is
insert.
Yeah.
Insertomatic.
Let's see.
No, God, I love Last Action Hero.
Anomalisa as well. Have you seen Anomalisa?
Oh, he's in Anomalisa?
He does everyone. He's classed as everyone.
Wow.
So there are only 3 actors, and it's David Thewlis,
that's
Jennifer Jason Leigh, and Tom Noonan does every other voice. Everyone.
I did not really like that movie. I did not really like that movie.
It's very...
It's like very not my type of movie, but I can acknowledge that it's good.
I mean, obviously, I love animation, so I can at least come into it from that point of view. But yeah, it's a hard
is
one
like
to watching
watch.
paint dry, and it's even more frustrating thinking they animated this. It would have been even harder to do.
You're saying, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, what was the
Well,
film?
here's something really interesting. I was thinking about his mannerisms and how deliberate they are. And even when he touches
Dolarhyde's.
Yes, Dolarhyde's mannerisms and the way he moves. When he touches Joan Allen's face right before he's about to maybe kill her, his arm trails out behind him in a very strange dancer type move.
Yeah.
And then I just saw something I didn't realize. He said that after the note that he was a very talented basketball player.
That's right. Basketball.
He said playing basketball is how I learned to perform in a lot of ways. It's how I got interested in performing. I never acted as a kid. I never did school plays. I never acted until I was 27, which is
that's late.
Wild. Yeah.
All comes back to basketball.
Oh yeah, and in his audition, he was doing the "Can you see" thing with, I can't remember who was there to read with him, and he scared the woman. And Michael Mann said that's when he said, "Oh, that's him. That's the guy," because he came in almost in character.
Because he also has is it a cleft palate?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah,
It goes into a lot of detail in the book on that.
Does it?
Yeah, the whole thing is palate.
Yeah, wow.
I can imagine that was a.
But I personally, when I think of Tom Noonan, obviously most people who go RoboCop 2. A lot of people.
I forgot he was in that.
Yeah, I mean he is.
Because Collision Course
in
is
that
one.
as well.
But Craig would go to that.
But I will always fight the corner for one of my favourite television series when I used to watch television.
Yeah.
That nobody has ever seen. Every time I bring it up.
What is it?
And it's called Hell on Wheels.
No, I've never
it's
seen
a
it.
Western TV series about the building of the Transcontinental Railroad.
That sounds really fun.
It
And
does.
he plays a reverend, and his character arc in that is just brilliant. He's one of the best television characters I've seen, and alongside a character called the Swede as well, who is played by, I can see his face now, he looks exactly like H.P. Lovecraft because he's played H.P. Lovecraft.
I've heard of the Swede in these.
He's got
show.
a longish face and he's just iconic.
Yeah,
and I can't remember the name of the actor, but those two villains, if you like, he starts off in that really against type. And it takes a couple of seasons to really sort of complete his story.
What is it called again?
Hell on Wheels.
Hell on Wheels.
I cannot recommend it highly enough. Every time somebody asks me about television and, what's your favourite TV series?
Yeah.
And it's always one, nobody's ever seen it. So I feel like I'm the only one on the planet that's seen it.
You might be.
Up until now.
But it's great. It ran for 5 seasons, so there should have been
you're
some
not the
people
only
watching.
one that's
someone
ever
out there,
seen
And it's got one of the most perfect endings.
People are just keeping quiet. They don't want to be affiliated with the show. It's too.
It's
too
an
sticky.
insider thing. They don't want to clue everyone in.
No.
It's if you know, you know.
There's now 2 reasons why I need to hunt down a couple CSI crime scene investigation folks, in case you weren't sure.
Well, Quentin Tarantino's episode, obviously.
Oh, I didn't know he did one.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he did. He did one. Yeah.
Okay, so I have to see that, and I have to see the 2 Friedkin episodes.
Yep.
And
I've only seen one of the Friedkin.
okay. How was it?
It's good. And
you can tell
the
it's
QT
Friedkin
one's
doing it?
amazing because it's basically rope. It's basically buried.
Okay.
It's basically so it's just a oneer, and it's a
that's great.
This chamber piece episode is brilliant.
Well, there's also an episode where Tom Noonan plays the villain against William Petersen.
Yeah.
Oh my! No way.
Yeah.
No way.
I think Petersen was a producer on
Is that the
show.
Friedkin one? Because that's the other Friedkin one that I might not have
That
seen.
would be very
Or is that
interesting.
a different director? I've definitely not seen that.
I'm gonna. Oh wow, he's in Willie and
So I've
Phil.
not seen much CSI.
Willie and Phil is a Paul Mazursky movie. I think a remake of Jules and Jim.
If he is in William Petersen and Tom Noonan in a Friedkin episode, that would be amazing. That would be like literally the holy trinity of like Manhunter to Live and Die in LA.
No, it really
CSI.
would.
What a brilliant little nod. And also there was a little bit of trivia I remember reading about where when Brian Cox was Hannibal Lector in Manhunter, Hopkins was on stage at the National playing Hamlet, or a Shakespearean play, but they're both the same plays. And then when Hopkins was Hannibal Lecter, Brian Cox was at the National playing in the same production.
I think Brian Cox does such a great job as Hannibal, and I think he's oftentimes overshadowed.
He's the
he's terrific in this.
I mean, it's going to be people are going to ask, and it's going to come up, but it's Brian Cox is playing beat for beat from the book. And
why don't you slide your finger down that little...
He's doing exactly... Hopkins is doing exactly what we spoke about earlier, in the idea of, right, here's the character, go and write your notes and bring something else.
Yeah.
And that's what happens when an exceptional actor brings so much more. I believe that Hopkins, he creates as much... He's created as much of Hannibal as Harris has.
The episode with Tom Noonan was in fact directed by Danny Cannon.
Danny Cannon.
Danny Cannon.
I'm not sure.
He's from Luton. He's the British director that did the classic Judge Dredd, isn't he?
Let's check it out. Let's check the tape, Bob.
I might be wrong.
You probably aren't.
But Danny Cannon rings a bell, and I'm sure he's from Luton in the
Judge
UK.
Dredd
and for
director.
$5,
there you go, Judge Dredd director.
Winner.
Boom.
There you go.
Pow.
That's why they bring me on this show.
Yeah.
I
You're
always-
encyclopedic.
Just for Judge Dredd reference.
Someone said to me outside the Bev or something, it's a shame.
I was going to say, who's that hanging outside yesterday?
Someone said, it's a shame that like Petersen didn't do much after this. And I went, you mean he didn't just roll in the money for 10 years as the lead guy and producer at CSI? No, he did fine. He actually turned down Platoon.
Wow, I didn't know that.
He did a movie for HBO about...
The Tom Berenger part, if I recall.
Yeah, that's right. He turned it down. He goes, I'm not going to be out there stuck in some fucking field, have to go through military training for like no money. No thanks. What's that?
I'd do the same. There's no way I'd be getting eaten by mosquitoes. And
I didn't know that he did CSI after this. Like he was the producer of CSI.
I think he was the producer.
Yeah, he did become.
Wow, I didn't know that. Yeah. Thanks, Petersen.
I think he's the one who brought Friedkin onto CSI.
That would make sense.
And also, maybe it was good he wasn't in Platoon, because it would have been him and Willem Dafoe.
Oh my God! Yes.
Oh my God! I would have just done yet another connection.
Though I would be like probably more inclined to see it again.
Was Platoon before To Live and Die? No, it was after.
It's between the two films.
To Live and Die in LA was his
Platoon.
first. Yeah, he was in upstate New York doing a version of Streetcar Named Desire. And the guy, Bob Weiner, who was Friedkin's casting guy, was like, you got to see this guy. And Friedkin was like, I don't, it's that role belongs to Marlon Brando. Everyone else just has an impression of it. And he said, just come with me to this thing. He saw the production. And he said, this Bill Petersen guy is doing a totally new thing. He's the guy. I want him. They just had an interview, no reading. He said, you're the guy. And then how did Billy Pankow get in the movie?
Yeah, he brought Billy Pankow in.
Exactly. And boom, history was made. And again,
there's buddies.
Yeah, and Dafoe, of course, again, theater actor.
I love Platoon. I love it.
Platoon's great. I haven't seen it in a very long time.
It's one of my favorite war movies, or anti-war movies, or however you want to say it.
It is
about where a war takes place.
Yeah. The note. Let's look at some listener comments and questions.
Comments and questions.
I love that theme. We'll build that out. Before that, though, there's a director trademark in the IMDb. Michael Mann has a repeated phrase in his films. The phrase "time is luck." No, time is love. It's not time is luck. Doesn't she say time is love? But doesn't she say that? Or
you can't trust the internet, and you can't trust IMDb. And who is she?
Fake news.
Well,
Fake news.
Kim Grice, the wife.
The wife.
Yeah.
She says every moment is precious and everything. I cried at that part too. Very sentimental viewing of the film. Maybe it is luck because it's also used in Heat. So
maybe it's a little interchangeable. I don't know. Time is luck. I don't know if she would say time is luck.
Maybe it's just time is that he repeats, and then he just inserts
a different one.
Yeah.
Time is money.
That would make
time
sense.
is catering. That's in a different film. That's in Black Hat. And it's used in Miami Vice, the film, which is a travesty.
It's just, what is that
I
film?
know, it's so bad. And there was a Michael Mann-a-thon in England. No, it's garbage. Listen, it was plagued with production problems. If they made a documentary about it, it would be like that one about Terry Gilliam trying to film Don
like
Quixote.
It's got no script. It's there is nothing there.
It's terrible.
They're just walking around like
I think I've seen
nothing.
it and I blocked it out.
Oh, I'm not surprised.
I literally blocked it out because I saw on my letterbox that I had it logged, and I was like,
it's not even a one-star film, and it's shocking the fact that he made that.
It is. There was plagued with production. I think he is not happy with it. I think he's happier with it than The Keep, but I don't think he should have revisited the whole idea.
The Keep is fucking Citizen Kane
compared to. And I love the series. I hate that movie.
Series is great.
I just want to see The Keep in its full glory. I would love if like Michael Mann somehow remade The Keep with its full script and like full budget and like everything. Like if he remade it
he's
now.
So disowned it. He's so. I think he talks about it sparingly.
Did he write the script for The Keep? I can't recall.
Let's look that up.
I know because I can't recall with my memory right now.
Did.
I've thrown that out of my.
It's basically his Dune, isn't it? It's like David Lynch.
Okay, that reminds me of something I wanted to get into as well. The Dino De Laurentiis of it all. So Dino De Laurentiis also has a tie to Friedkin too, but Dino De Laurentiis funded this film and is the reason why it's not called Red Dragon. He was concerned that people would think it was about
a kung fu movie.
Exactly, and also had just endured the tremendous bomb Year of the Dragon with Mickey Rourke, directed by Michael Cimino, who's been known to have a couple slip-ups at the box office. Incidentally,
he ended New Hollywood.
Yes, he did. Did anyone ever see the plastic surgery Mr. Cimino got?
Ooh,
before it was wild. Wild.
It's unrecognizable.
Very strange. Yeah, like not worse than Mickey Rourke style. We were going to look something up. What were we going to look up?
Keep if Michael Mann wrote it.
Yeah.
I'm curious because he wrote this.
Sure. It's almost like a paperback from Hell type.
Yes,
I'm pretty sure. Has he written basically everything that he's done?
Or at least co-written. I might be wrong.
But he wrote Thief, I believe, and we'll look that up.
But don't forget, he is an his English literature background. That's what he studied at university.
Good writer.
So why would he not?
What was the first TV show script that he got?
I don't know that one.
No. Starsky and Hutch.
No,
he wrote a spec script. He wrote a spec script, which never gets made.
And then he literally just takes Starsky and Hutch and transposes it to Florida.
That's what it is.
Essentially, what
they got to go to Florida.
Yeah.
So he did that, and then he was on something called Police Story. No, not Police Story, because that was the Naked Gun.
Oh, was he involved in Hill Street Blues at any point?
No,
who was I reading about the other day? Who was Hill Street Blues? Oh, no, that's David Mamet. David Mamet is Hill Street Blues.
Oh, while I'm looking this up,
moment, I think.
Well, wait, who is it? Stephen Bochco and Daniel J. Travanti. Theme by Mike Post.
Oh, it's one of the greatest. If I had two of my favorite TV themes, it's Hill Street Blues and Magnum P.I.
Both written by Mike Post.
Mike Post.
Yeah, there's a great interview with Mike Post on the show called The Hustle. John
on this show.
On this show.
I want to know, have you sat in this seat?
Yeah. No, I've never heard a Mike Post interview before, and there's a 2-hour one with this guy, John Lamoureux. He does a great show. He talks to any and every person. There's 2 Fee-Wayable interviews. You
mean name dropping or...
No, he talks about... he just talks about... He just lists people. He goes through the phone book of Hollywood, and then he moves on to New York. But I've never heard a Mike Post interview before. His backstory is fascinating. He had a working relationship with Jim Gordon, the drummer from Derek and the Dominoes, who sadly killed his mother after he went to see his schizophrenia, was aggravated by drug use. Anyway, more cheerful things to come on this show.
This is an education.
As always with Craig, it's an education.
Why, thank you. Right? You needed to know about Collision Course.
That's why I've come on. I want to take something away as much as I bring.
Let's see. Oh, they have a shot of Scott Glenn, and I was like, that doesn't look like him. Directed by and screenplay by Michael Mann.
So Michael Mann must have basically written all of his projects that he's been working on.
At least.
Yeah.
He's a very good writer.
He is.
Slightly control freak. I don't know.
Oh, do you think so?
I mean, I think most directors,
there has to be an element of control.
I think most good directors are control freaks because you have to be the captain of your ship, and if you are not.
Film is controlled chaos.
Yeah,
I don't know where that quote comes from, but
there has to be a general somewhere, and if they don't enact control freak tendencies, the movie is not going to be
Good.
No, exactly. Like, yeah. So Friedkin yells at people on sets. Okay, whatever. You know, I didn't have to be on them. He actually slapped actors twice. There was an actor.
Friedkin did, yeah.
Yeah, he did once in the. Well, he used to shoot guns off to unnerve people on the set of The Exorcist.
The old way of making movies. The good way of making movies.
Well, and there's this young actor, Anthony C. Hall, in the scene that he's supposed to be very shook up, and Nolte is confronting him about something. And apparently there was 6 takes, which Friedkin hated at this point.
Which film's this?
Blue Chips.
I've not seen Blue Chips.
I highly recommend it.
That's Friedkin.
Yeah, isn't that wild?
I've heard of it. I didn't know that was Friedkin.
He's a basketball. He was he loves the movie Basketball. He was a basketball fanatic and actually was offered 1/3 of the ownership of the Celtics in '78, but he passed because there's a lot of story with that. But he used to travel with them and sometimes like scrimmage with them. The Bill Friedkin magic tunnel. We love
Friedkin.
I can't get enough of him.
Oh my God, I could listen to him all day.
Yeah, me too. By the way, there's a DGA interview that's like 20 chapters, half hour each, interviewed by Jeremy Kagan. I'll send you the link.
Please do.
I got some great clips from To Live and Die in LA that I'm going to play you. I'm not going to spoil them because I want your reaction to be just like it was in the theater. Yeah, I should have recorded that. I almost did it. I almost had Gala's reaction to the thing
he took me for the very first time to see To Live and Die in LA. We went together.
That must have been amazing.
It was. He was definitely watching my reaction.
Yeah, well, I was vampiring a little. I was like, ooh.
He was vampiring, like, ooh, someone who's seen it for the very first time.
I can tell if someone's not into the movie too, and then I'm like, I don't know about you.
No, I was in it. I was in it.
No, you were. I could tell from
the moment. Then you must have been. Yeah, I was gonna say.
No, that's exactly. And she was like, and like looked to me, and I was remember my face. I was like, yeah.
You know what? Surely to God, that moment, because I'm not going to spoil that for anybody.
You can't. It's illegal.
No, if there's any moment we thought this huge disclaimer.
Yeah.
It must be what. Obviously, the original version of The Departed into Infernal Affairs. There's that element of it, isn't there, where you watch it,
the Andy Garcia
even thinking
flick. I haven't seen it in so long.
Infernal
I forget.
Affairs is the
Richard Gere.
Is it Infernal Affairs? It's the Hong Kong film.
Which there was remade. It was remade in the US.
There's 3 of them. The Departed. That moment again, where you just, in fact, they do it twice, right within the last 15 minutes of the film.
So, like, it goes without saying that if you haven't seen To Live and Die in LA, you have to go see it and don't look up anything about it and just go watch it.
No.
That's all I can say.
Yeah,
anything.
Not
on
the
that
trailer.
Film.
Don't even look at the trailer.
No, don't look at the trailer
or the letterbox. Just go.
Yeah, because people go, "Wow, I was really blah blah blah."
Don't even read the description of if you're watching it like on streaming, just like click watch. Don't even read the description. Just buy it and watch it.
Just buy it. It's worth it. And also, people go, "Well, it's not on streaming." And I go, "Well, you can either come and watch it with me or buy the fucking Blu-ray."
Buy the Blu-ray. You will not regret it.
Yeah, like look, you got all these other movies for free.
Arrow
buy this one. Arrow, and the 4K, which I can't find my copy. I bought the 4K.
Okay, if you buy a second one, you can always have 2.
Yeah,
well, I have 3. I have 3. I have the MGM, which I have to show you, and we'll talk about this. I'll show you there's a reason I got to show you the 2 covers. I have the Arrow. I have the MGM. And Jack from Wang Chung did a supplemental interview on top of the other interview I did with him. So that's
how many
good.
copies of Live and Die in LA have you got?
Like, don't ask him. He's gonna start counting.
There's this one. I don't have a VHS or a beta, and I have to get those. Thank you. That would be.
I think I'll help track it down.
I think I've got 31 copies of The Thing.
Oh wow!
And I think almost 30 of Blade Runner.
Different media,
different types of format and packaging, and Australian versions.
Wow.
All the British versions, the different ones in America, the laser discs, the
Steelbox.
They're the only Jaws, Blade Runner, The Thing in particular. They're the only ones that I will try and get as many different versions of the art, and I'm just love the art.
I have 4 VHS copies of The Train Killer. I don't know why. I just keep getting them gifted to me.
Your favorites creep up on you.
I know.
Your favorites creep up on you.
People just keep on gifting them to me now.
That is far more impressive though, because it's such an obscure film. So it's like to have 4 copies of.
On
I've
VHS.
never heard of it.
On VHS.
I need to see that now.
Yeah, it's only on VHS.
Oh, remind me, I have a soundtrack LP for you.
Okay.
Okay. Did you listen, by the way, to Mac and Me? It's
no.
Do you have a cassette deck?
The Mac and Me soundtrack.
I do have yes, he gave me the Mac and Me. I do have a cassette deck, but I haven't listened to it yet.
I just want to make sure you had a cassette deck. If you didn't,
it's on display right now. It's on display.
Okay, that's all that matters.
Oh wow, the Mac and Me
my
soundtrack.
other cassette that I have an Angelique Kidjo.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they work well together as a companion
Yeah.
set. I have a transfer of it too. I think I did years ago that I'll have to find and send it to you. Yeah. I did find my copy of the Apple, but I don't want to get too far away from what we need to do, which would be listener questions. Da 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 da.
Do I have answers? Probably not.
Or are they comments? That's all that we got. We don't know. We're going to the listener questions.
I think, spoiler alert, I think Eric Clapp asked a question.
Did he? I think he just might have.
I think he did.
Let's see.
Is that
Eric
a new one?
Eric Clapp, Cinema Force, and other magic things, who also provided me with some unreal, amazing press kits.
I absolutely love those posts.
They're so
envious.
good, aren't they?
It's like, wow, this is phenomenal.
Eric's amazing.
He is. Thank God I just found the size slider because I have the eyes of a 94-year-old man.
Those slides are amazing. The Live and Die in LA slides.
Oh my God, the slides are incredible.
The one on fire, the fire one.
The fire, yeah, that, and then tucked into another one was at the 8x10 of Billy Pankow and Bill Petersen. I was like, this is amazing.
Billy and Bill.
Yeah.
Did Eric send those over?
Yeah. Eric sent the press kit for him for To Live and Die in LA. Wow. Or I don't know if it was a full press kit. It was like
whatever was left, and one
left.
of them had a slide. He also sent me some other ones, including the press kit for Moment by Moment, the John Travolta Lily Tomlin film, and inside it has 12 slides.
I know.
12 8x10s and a full folded poster.
Oh wow!
I am so excited.
The slides, that's what's so special, because I would just a shout out to Eric really quick. Like, I would assume that like when someone was giving out these press kits, just like from the kindness of their heart to kind of spread the collection around, because he cannot shoulder it. I mean, Bobby passed away, unfortunately, and he's just giving them to people who really care about them. But
wonderful.
I would pocket, personally. I am not as nice as him, because I would pocket all the slides.
What he's doing is really important.
God's work.
It is really God's work. It is.
In this day and age, I will harp on about it, but physical things and owning that, you learn more through any of that material than you would going straight to the internet.
Oh,
yeah.
No, for sure.
There's stuff in these things.
That stuff is edited.
Most of that.
It's
so
curated
edited
from the offset.
It's crazy.
And it's written and edited by
if it's even real.
Who you would think are the best of the best at the time to put that together.
Yes. Yeah.
You know,
really
why would you go on the
department
internet and look something up random that will take you off piste? Or
it's also so I've used the AFI catalog several times for research, and AFI catalog is a very good resource and tool.
Because it's a visual organization, though. They're the best ones to go to.
But when you see the AFI catalog page versus you get the actual press kit, it is crazy how much information is not on the official page.
Yeah.
It's really crazy. So I really think, Eric, when Friedkin died, I went on eBay and I purchased Mexican rollerball, like marketing things, and also a bunch of slide film for Jesus Christ Superstar.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
That, you know what, we should do a movie club on that subject, because I've never seen Jesus Christ Superstar.
I have no comment. I'm going to call the police. I'm going to go get on my phone right now.
I know. I'm going to try to stretch this taping out as long as possible so I can figure out my escape route. But so we're going to start with, I don't know if this is the first one. This is a simple one. J Cummins 123 _ wrote, love it. We do too.
Thanks.
Appreciate that,
Thank
Jay.
you. We also love it.
We do.
So it would have been better, I think, if I'd have just come in and been the wild card and just destroyed the apple cart.
Yes, yeah.
It would have been interesting.
You should hear, I should send you the raw tape with Alex Cox, and I was like, oh, when he talked about his opinion of To Live and Die in LA.
Oh, you should hear that later.
It's, I'll play it for you for sure.
Excellent.
Because that might, not the whole thing's not going to make it in. Grace Marion writes, love. Okay, so Tom Noonan was the wacky serial killer, and he is consistently awesome in everything, although he will forever be Frankenstein's monster in Monster Squad.
Yeah.
To me. Anyone here seen Monster Squad? You've seen it?
Of course.
A long time ago. It's Fred Savage, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. I wonder if he was the first choice to play Francis Dolarhyde, or was there somewhere else? Yeah, Friedkin. He wanted Friedkin to play all the.
I know Grace.
Yeah, cool. Hello, Grace, and thank you for the lovely comment. And I believe, Grace, that he was found during the audition process. So I think the first one. And then
Friedkin was supposed to be what's his name?
Lector.
I'm just so excited that Friedkin was supposed to be Lector that I just want Friedkin to also be Dolarhyde.
I know, me too.
I couldn't see.
Friedkin. Do you see? Can you
imagine? Wait a second. Can you imagine if Friedkin played Dolarhyde?
Oh my God!
Firing guns at the side of the camera as well.
Do you see?
As he's doing it.
Just take my word for it. I'm smiling.
Going off of her question, though, is there anyone else that you could have seen play Dolarhyde?
God, I don't know.
Around that time.
Eric Roberts.
Oh, you know what? But he doesn't have that like foreboding size to him.
No,
not the size.
What he can do, crazy.
Star 80s, but he's disturbing.
Yeah.
Though physically, he'd have to. Although it would make it interesting to have such a beautiful guy.
He would match the physicality in the book because of the perfection.
But he's so beautiful.
He's like body and everything.
Yeah.
But wouldn't that make an interesting twist on like he thinks he's so ugly?
Yeah.
He just doesn't know.
It might have been more difficult to swallow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who else?
I love
Burt Young from Rocky.
One of my favorites is Runaway Train.
It's so good.
Oh God, he's so good in that.
He's great in Pope of Greenwich Village. The only problem with Pope of Greenwich Village is the last 5 minutes are just awful.
God, it's so long since I've seen that.
I got to see it at the New Beverly, and I was running a minute late, so I missed his introduction. But we literally almost walked into each other. He was leaving, and he was so nice. He's like, "Hey, wow, look at you! This is great." And he's like, "Man, you got the whole thing going on." I had like shirt open to here, and it was very loud. And I don't know. And I think he thought I had something to do with the theater. I don't know. I wasn't going to correct him. And then I said, "Can we do a picture?" He's like, "Yeah, sure, man. That'd be great." One of the worst selfies I've ever taken. I'll show it to you at some point.
That ilk of actor, though, like Noonan, Perlman, Henriksen.
Perlman could have done it.
Perlman, maybe, yeah. And it's just reminded me of a serial killer movie with Eric Robertson, and I can't remember what it was called over here.
Where he plays a talking cat.
It's one with Lance Henriksen and Eric Roberts. It's called Hatchet Man in the UK, if I recall.
Okay.
And it's like a road movie. And I can't even remember which one is which. Who is the normal guy picking the hitchhiker up, and one of them is the serial killer.
Yeah,
and it's this cat and mouse thing going on. I remember it being good, but I've not come across it since. But it's got a different title over here, so maybe listeners will chime in after this episode
you guys
goes
let
out.
us know. Springtime for Jedi and Springsteen. And Dolarhyde, Francis and Reba. All right, Springsteen Jedi says, my favorite Hannibal movie. It's in my top 10 80s movies. Mann's best film. Okay, tied with Heat. ... I don't think I'd like the movie anymore, but in another universe, I wonder what would happen for it commercially with a more popular cast. Or maybe Ed Norton and Anthony Hopkins already showed me, which was my second favorite Hannibal movie, which I think that's interesting that Red Dragon is their second favorite to this. And to your question before, yes, this is my favorite of the Hannibal movies I've seen. I've seen Hannibal with the Ray Liotta stuff and all that. I liked it, but I felt it was almost Hannibal's becoming Freddy Krueger. What,
in Hannibal?
Yeah.
The Ridley Scott one. It's a cartoon.
It is.
I
forgot it was Ridley Scott.
Become a cartoon.
He was like, here comes old Hannibal. Dun, 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 dun. Blah. I forgot it was Ridley Scott because his scope and depth and range.
Hannibal Rising. Oh my God.
I didn't see that. I thought,
where
no
is
thanks.
That going? That the origin idea of it in where he came from and what happens is really disturbing and could have worked. And then the rest of the film, it's like, come on, that was a really good setup. And it's really making us rethink exactly why he does what he does and why he's a cannibal.
Oh, okay.
Why is a cannibal?
I thought it was just because it rhymed with his name.
Well, it goes back to World War II.
He's like, well, it rhymes with my name. I might as well be as bad as I can.
There's some interesting symbolism as well in the Hannibal Rising. The whole thing with the mask and.
I'm just wanting to see how 80s it looked. That's all. Yeah. Well, it's that's I'm trying to do the Will Graham thing, but he keeps it more demure. I do like that when he's doing his independent solo investigations. Now he's wearing a tie. You know, but on the beach, he's very relaxed and everything.
With his shorts on and getting some sun.
So based on that question, though, I have my own question.
Yes.
So was Manhunter like a commercial success? Because so it wasn't a commercial success.
No, and
so it is technically, I'm going to guess, a cult film. Then
that's why
you brought up the whole cult aspect.
Yeah, but it doesn't look or feel like, in terms of its production,
movie.
but what defines a cult movie? It's a
cult following.
I always go by, if I deliver certain things with my students, there's one particular project I give them about cult cinema and coming up with that answer, and I will always use the idea of, in a parallel universe, there is Star Wars where it wasn't a success.
Yes.
And that film, even if you watch it now, especially the original, not the 97 version with all the special effects in, it still feels like a film that, despite how grand it is and incredible that must have been to see it for the first time in 1977, is, you know, it's a creature feature. There's so much stuff going on that it's miraculous at the timing of when that was released that it did become, you know, the second blockbuster ever.
Yeah.
Because it could have gone the other way.
It could have.
It really could have. And it still feels like that to me. And I love almost kind of switching the gears in my head when I'm watching A New Hope and looking at it through the lens of almost bordering on Roger Corman, and then maybe watch it back to back with Battle Beyond the Stars.
And I was just wondering, after Mann went to TV, what was his next film?
After Mann went to TV, well,
you mean after what? Miami Vice?
Manhunter, because Manhunter came out.
No, after Manhunter did not perform well commercially.
Oh yeah, it's Last of the Mohicans.
No, is it? That's in the 90s.
Yeah, but that's his next film after Manhunter.
No, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I personally don't think that a different, like a more well-known cast would have made it better at the box office.
No, I don't either.
I think the cast does so well in the movie that I have a hard time imagining pretty much anyone else in there, especially like who the hot stars were back then. And I don't think it would have been a cast-driven box office movie anyway.
Oh, and back to the beginning, we were talking about his origins. Police Story was the thing. I think whatever the Naked Files thing was called, it was Police, whatever. But Police Story was...
No, we're not. You're not talking Naked Gun
but
TV series.
Naked Gun was born from, I think, called The Police Files or something.
Are you saying Michael Mann?
No. What I'm saying is he was on Police Story.
Imagine him directing an episode.
No, that would be funny. Leslie, just come back with the coffee cup just a little bit, like about half an inch. No, split the difference.
He doesn't do comedy.
Wait, he wrote 4 episodes of Starsky and Hutch, 3 in the first season, 1 in the second, and then the pilot episode for Vegas, and then he worked on a show called Police Story with Joseph Wambaugh, and then that's what brought him into contact with all the cops. That started a whole thing. So, like Friedkin, he knew all the cops and all the bad guys in Chicago, where they're both from. Sorry, go ahead.
I know we can really fixate on that idea of him being so much into like this procedural background with like early television and then going into Miami Vice and Manhunter and Heat.
Yeah.
But when you look at his filmography isn't huge because he's so meticulous and because he takes his time with the material.
Yes.
So going back to like the next one after Manhunter, he goes from Manhunter to then doing the Frontiersman epic, and you know the original, a really old story from pre-West, pre-colonial almost.
Which, by the way,
it feels very early on in the history of what we see as America today. It's almost like a detox. It might have been a bit of a detox from Manhunter.
Completely.
Let's go. I want to go for an adventurous type film, but I'm going to treat it in the typical man earnest fashion of I'm going to treat this seriously. This is exactly what this story should be at that time.
And that was a huge hit, right? Last of the Mohicans.
I'm not sure. But again, coming on the back of Polarizing as well, you also get Daniel Day-Lewis on the back of My Left Foot playing that lead in Last of the Mohicans.
Okay, so we were talking earlier about how he is not a Daniel Day-Lewis. Could you have seen Daniel Day-Lewis in Manhunter?
No. Oh, well, no. Do you know what? Yes, I could, because he can do anything.
But could he? Who would you have put him as? Would you have put him as the Tooth Fairy? Because he's very tall, and he would have had that kind of same foreboding.
I would put him as Lector.
Oh, Lector.
Okay.
Interesting. Yeah, I would say, personally, I would put him as a tooth fairy.
I can see that too.
Yeah.
Not Will Graham.
He can
in any
play
way.
any of those characters.
And also, I don't think
All of them.
All of them.
He does all of them.
Even
Everyone,
the
like a
wife,
one-man
even the blind
show.
woman.
Yep.
He is the greatest actor of all time. He can play every single character
in Manhunter.
and it's
Yeah.
a one-man show.
It would be like the Nutty Professor with Eddie Murphy.
That's right.
Yep. I'd like to think, what was on another movie club? Oh, I can't remember now. It was like Michael Mann. I'll remember it. Michael Mann's Batman was the premise.
Michael Mann's
Batman because
Imagine
the color
that.
coding, you know what I mean? All the color coding would all be there. The Joker, the green floods out, and Dennis Farina as Alfred was the thing. Be like, Bruce, you keep trying this stuff, and you're.
But
No,
isn't
you
that,
got to
that's what
get this guy.
Manhunter is? Those elements are there, aren't they? And how
Batman elements, yeah.
and
Yeah.
also again, it's going back to American storytelling and having these egos and alter egos and your arch enemy, and the way that Hannibal becomes more and more and more like a sort of American mythic character or a supervillain. He does feel as though he starts leaning more closer towards becoming the Joker than he does
When later
staying as
films-
the original Hannibal Lecter, which is
Yeah.
what Brian Cox is playing.
Absolutely. And that's why I sort of went off the series. I thought this is just going
It's
and
comic
going.
bookish. It feels like
Yeah, it's like,
from a
yay,
comic
there
book.
he is. Oh, who's he going to eat this time and how?
Yeah.
And what kind of wine? So then to that, Felix Z writes, Manhunter over Silence of the Lambs. Agreed? Well, for me, yes, I haven't seen Silence of the Lambs in a very long time. I liked it. I love Jonathan Demme's stuff. Jodie Foster is incredible. I've never been pulled to see it again, and maybe that's because it was so disturbing, but I like the disturbing films. So I think everyone knows that. I like this one better, personally.
I like Manhunter better. Manhunter, as we have said, has all the color coding and stuff, and compared to when you see Hannibal Lecter in Manhunter versus Silence of the Lambs, you have the very white, sterile, and then you have the very dirty, kind of scary. You feel like you're going to be captured by him in that moment. You feel danger about it. I think that this Manhunter is probably for me over Silence of the Lambs, but my favorite of Demme's work, Something Wild. Obviously.
Oh, that's my favorite too. I almost put the record out here because I couldn't find the other.
That's
well, you might have to do the movie club for that then.
I love that. I love that movie. That movie, much like Manhunter, and I think I was talking with you about the tonal shift. Was I talking with you about tonal shift?
The best tonal shift ever.
It has the best tonal shift, and how Manhunter introduces the villain exactly halfway through.
Yes.
Jonathan Demme, Something Wild, has the perfect tonal shift lighting cue that takes the movie dark, and then tonally the movie completely changes exactly halfway through the movie. It is genius.
And I saw that as a kid. I have no idea how I found out it was coming out, but I had already seen Body Double, was obsessed with Melanie Griffith, and then after seeing Something Wild, I think I was like, what age was I? So I was probably the only 13 to 14-year-old who was really excited when, the new Scorsese movie's coming out with that guy in it? Oh my God, Ray Liotta's starring. I don't think that was the talk of the school.
I think I've learnt to like Manhunter more than Silence of the Lambs, because seeing Silence of the Lambs for the first time, I remember more clearly and it was more impactful. Whereas Manhunter, I remember seeing it and I remember liking it.
Yeah.
But the more I've gone back to it over the years, it's like fine wine. You appreciate it so much more, because I think from my point of view, the more of a kind of cinephile I've become and the more understanding of the way films are made, that you can pick a lot more out of Manhunter because of how economic and restrained Mann is, and the details, and there is so much to appreciate. It's so precise. If you want to kind of study a film that has precision and there's no fat on it, it rattles along.
Yeah.
You're not bored for 1 minute. And also it's got that odd balance of it is a definitive 80s movie. It has the flavour of an 80s movie. Yeah, you still watch it today and it oddly feels modern. And I don't mean modern in the way that 80s modern, it still feels a modern film.
Yes, it does.
It's that. Whereas if you watch Silence of the Lambs, there are many moments in that film where it will take you out of it.
Yeah, because it's resolutely 90s.
Yeah, and
There's
because it's heightened.
Classic.
Yes.
And there is nothing subtle at all about Silence of the Lambs. And it's about a cannibal serial killer giving an advice about another serial killer. You can't be... It's very difficult to be subtle about that sort of thing. Yeah. But as a film, it's just so different.
It is so different. And then we go to... Oh, that's my comment and reply to it. Very important. I haven't spoken enough on this show, so let's see. What's this one? Has any other movie ever used the music of Iron Butterfly in such a genius way? I think that's clear. No. And also, I'm pretty sure, and I should time it out, it does play out in real time because it's a long one. So that riff is going over and over.
Does it play the entire thing or does it stop for a little bit and then start up again?
I think you just can't hear it because they're in the car.
And also, that's the pretty amazing thing about it is that it's like source
rather
than score.
Yes.
And the source rather than score also happens in the sex scene between them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's like, because he actually turns on the music.
Yes.
That's so uncomfortable.
And he turns it on then, too.
Yeah, and he turns
puts
it on
the
then.
A-track in.
It makes it so uncomfortable.
Really?
I mean, it's uncomfortable anyway, but that music...
And
just
it's such
choice.
It's such a great choice. And now knowing that
the serial killer
thought it was his their song with the girl that he didn't.
That's crazy.
It's so crazy. Also, the things you go, Michael Mann has heard and seen a lot of things.
Did that serial killer kill that girl? Or did he just kill other people?
I think he did. Let's, I have this one here. Let's see.
Oh, you can answer it later. Craig.
Yeah, we'll check that out later. We'll put that in the question. What do they call it? Errors and omissions that they do how did this get made?
Gala wanted to know.
Yes, Gala wrote in and said. So I think that answer. Yeah, this is the same. Oh, and then Grace tagged their friend April and said, "It's your man, April the Gray." And I wrote, "It's Petersen season because To Live and Die in L.A. is coming up soon." So we move along to.
Don't forget Young Guns 2 as well.
Petersen is in that?
Of course, he's Pat Garrett.
I forget these things. That reminds me, I have to see Fear with Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd say that sentence. And then at the New Bev at one of the horror marathons,
that's I still need to see. I've not seen it.
See,
I have not either.
Look at that. We're all in the same boat. Now there's a reason to see it. Petersen is the reason. He plays the dad who's wary of Wahlberg's character and with good reason. So then... okay, we read that one. Let's see if we're going in the right order. These were screenshots because I realized you can't really copy and paste from Instagram. But DJ Kemi wrote, everything about this movie is absolutely 100% or 100 the emoji. From character build-up to dialogues and, of course, the soundtrack. So let's talk about the soundtrack again because Graham's theme is so haunting and incredible. And it's almost like Pink Floyd's Comfortably Numb. But I remember coming home from the midnight screening and on a loop playing Graham's theme, Heartbeat, and the other aspect of that sequence that we love so much, where Dolarhyde is basically the final brick in the wall is going in, and he's becoming the monster fully. Strong as I Am, that song.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it is spine-chilling.
Mann is so intentional with his lyric choices also of exactly what parts of songs that he uses to kind of help the viewer along and be like, hey, this is what either the person's thinking right now or this is what you should be thinking. It's excellent.
He's thinking as a writer, first and foremost. Yeah. And that comes from him recognizing the poetry and the words and how it all links up to the imagery he's putting on the screen. But the music in general, every one of his films. Yeah. And again, if you're looking at a contrast between Manhunter and Last of the Mohicans, which the score, it's one of the greatest scores of any film you'll watch. It's beautiful, but such a contrast.
I have to both see that.
He picks the right music for the right story to tell. And I think also...
Get this jacket off.
It's not as synth wave as you would think it's going to be.
Well,
I think
the
if
Mohicans.
well, no, that'd be great. A synth wave version
imagine Last of the
that would be
Mohicans
amazing.
with a synthwave score.
But yeah, there's only 1 or 2 tracks maybe that are kind of bordering on.
Man always tends to have really good scores for his movies.
Just everyone.
Even the Keep. Craig can't comment right now, so I'm just going to keep saying even the Keep.
Yeah, I know. I can't. You chose a vulnerable moment as I was. I just wanted to do a crotch shot, but the jacket was getting too constricting. Also, I have sort of. It's funny because when Graham is wearing that sort of gym top, I was like, I have something like that, but I'm not wearing it. It resides in the closet. So I got to talk to Michael Mann once at Vidiots, the old Vidiots, and it was great. It was my first year in LA.
Oh, is that the one on YouTube? There's one on YouTube of you and. If that's the one I'm thinking of, or was it somebody else with Michael Mann?
No, I mean I talked to him. It was a Q&A, general Q&A.
Thinking of the Live and Die in LA.
I did. I talked to Friedkin,
Prince Charles in London.
Oh yeah, that's me and Wang Chung. Yeah.
Thank
you. I'm glad you watched that.
Of course I did.
You know what? Some motherfucker turned my recorder off.
Come on, anything without. You were ridiculous.
I appreciate that. I am. You were a man of details. We're talking about man of details.
I'm his nephew.
I tell you. When I talked to him at this Q&A, he was amazing. He talked with us for like 2 hours. He answered every question. I asked, at what point in the process does music factor into it? Do you start writing and then start getting a vibe for the music? And then I think this is actually similar to what Quentin was talking about on the show or some interview about his records room. Mann says, it's the very first thing. It's the very first thing that starts the whole process. So with Tangerine Dream, he already knew them. And of course, Friedkin was the first to ever use Tangerine Dream to score Sorcerer. And then with every movie, he's talked about the music, like with Heat, whatever music is in that.
So he's going for pure mood first and foremost, isn't he? Before he knows what the story is going to be and he knows what he's going to do next.
Yeah.
But he's not necessarily written the script then. Is that what you're saying?
I think that's what he was saying when it comes down to the...
I mean, but this one, especially if he's corresponding with that serial killer and that serial killer is giving him music cues.
Because in Agata-Davida, I was always wondering how he chose that.
I think it's shocking how he chose that. And also when you hear that the serial killer told him like, hey, this is the song that the girl that I was obsessed with, I thought it was our song. It does inform the character of
of Dolarhyde.
Yeah,
because he's gonna kill the girl he's obsessed with.
He's obsessed with, and so really that is like where the script kind of started from, is that correspondence and that conversation and that song.
And also to make the kind of bold choice to interpolate that with Tom Harris's novel, who apparently was not a big fan of Manhunter. He did not like it.
I feel like
makes sense based on what
I was going to say. Most authors are not fans of their work.
But I think the sorts of things that were cut out of it, though, is going to be quite precious about, because they're pretty integral.
Yeah.
When you read the novel, you can't imagine those bits not being in there.
Well, like for one example for me with like novelization to movie is Audition, Takashi Miike's Audition.
I've never seen that.
I love the book Rui Murakami.
I've not read the book.
Love the book, but I love Rui Murakami's other book, In the Miso Soup. That's the book that I really love of his. It has this like 6-page part in the middle where it's like stomach churning, gut wrenching.
No,
she's vicious. She's like
she's got this like you wouldn't believe it,
but it's gut wrenching. And then you read Audition, and Audition has a very similar thing to this movie where there are parts that have been taken out that you read it and you're like, oh my god, if they only had added this to the movie, it would have made sense.
What else can you add to that movie to make you even more disturbed?
No, but
it's an incredible film.
Is it? Okay, I'll have to see it.
I don't like the movie though. No,
have you not seen Audition?
No.
Right.
Am I kicked out of my own apartment?
Yeah, he's kicking you out right now. No, but I don't really like the movie, and it's because they remove several things from the book where I feel like it informs the character and also the final sequence in Audition is more horrific in the book.
I mean, I would not even be able to argue a case against you. If you've read the book, I'll be like, I will take your word for it.
That's just a personal opinion. I love Rui Murakami. You should read In the Miso Soup.
Right.
If you love to read horror, read In the Miso Soup.
Okay.
Here we go.
We were talking about before the source text versus the film,
and they both always will exist, and that therefore I'm not angry.
And that's why The Shining, I don't know, I liked both, and I've never seen
They're their own things. Mix is good. Miniseries,
and it's now on Blu-ray. So,
excellent!
Yes, I want to see that.
It's great because it's much closer to the book. But before I forget, that idea of going off tangent slightly.
That's all right. It might have happened before.
What brings things full circle, the idea with a lot of stories about serial killers is that if you go back to who is considered the proto or original serial killer, Jack the Ripper. What happens in Manhunter? Who gives Dolarhyde his name? Who gives him the name, the Tooth Fairy? The police. Who gave Jack Ripper his name?
Yeah.
Or the media at the time.
Yeah.
So that idea of especially if you read something like, not the film, don't go near the film, it's awful. The original graphic novel that Alan Moore wrote, From Hell, is one of the most definitive pieces of fiction you will read about Jack the Ripper. And I'll say fiction, there is stuff in there. He researched that for 9 years before he committed to writing it.
Wow.
And it links up. It goes on about the Masonic Guild, the Pentagon and areas in London, the way it all aligns up, and the idea of Jack the Ripper giving birth to the 20th century, giving birth to the modern killer.
Wow.
And that really, I think, is a major template and blueprint of what all writers and then filmmakers have then gone back to. Because if you think of Hitchcock and the films he did about serial killers, if you look at The Lodger, the old silent movie that he did in about 1927, I think, which has some incredible shots, like the glass ceiling shots, if you've ever seen it, very iconic, is the Jack the Ripper story again. So he's predating that by over
kind of
30
that way
years
too?
as well. Frenzy. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's almost like you've got a series of Hitchcock serial killer movies of very specific times.
Yeah, are you good on time?
Yeah.
Okay, good. You're like, yes, I am. What was I going to say? I can't remember. If I can't remember, how would you know? So yeah, wait, these are, here's a repeat of that. And let's see.
Is it already 7:30?
Oh my God. Yeah, I think so.
It's not 7:30. Is it?
Yes,
really?
it is.
Oh my God.
I probably have like a little bit more time, and then I gotta ditch.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And any questions we don't get to, I'll just do later. Yeah, and actually, so with that, is there anything else that everyone wants to talk about? Because I can do the rest of the comments and questions later.
Anything else?
Anything else we want to talk about? What else can we dive into? Is there anything potentially that we've left out? I think we've covered everything.
Okay,
haven't
wait,
we?
here's something. Someone I know who I think is not that smart in terms of reading a film called the film, they're not going to watch this anyway, called the film homophobic. And I looked for it the next time I watched it. It's not.
Well, you mean Manhunter?
Yeah.
I assume the one homophobic thing they could think is that they use the queer aspect to bait him out and to anger him.
That would make sense.
That could be the one part where I could see someone could interpret that as homophobic. But
I still think that's a very low comprehension level. I know what you're saying. But
I would agree, though, that is not.
I don't think everybody would pick up on that anyway, necessarily.
It's about that guy's hang-ups and what they think would bother him.
Yeah.
And
you know
also,
what I mean?
That's a real thing that bothers people when they're accused of doing something they didn't do. Like, he is a terrible serial killer, but did he have sex with his male victims? No. So maybe he's upset that they're reporting incorrectly. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And
I don't think that that's homophobic.
I don't either. And the only funny thing is in the room, the big meeting room, right before they find out that the print is on the eyeball, before they dismiss everyone, he goes, okay, this team, you're on the KY Cowboys and the leather bars. But that's just like...
But that's also just like what beat cops were doing. And as we've talked about many times in busting, you have to kind of acknowledge what's going on in order to expose it and say that it's wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And now a couple other listener questions. Shark B8425, not to be confused with Shark B8424, wrote, as a comment to 8-Track Go-Go, I totally agree with your take. I saw it. I don't know what their take is. Maybe that's after this, but we like to do things non-linearly. I saw it opening weekend too and loved it. I still love the movie. Tom Harris hated it, and I'm still not sure if there was the Miami Vice influence, but it was a Miami Vice world then. And they actually like the alternative ending, which isn't always easy to find. I just want to let you know, Shark, that you can get it on the Shout, or I think Shout Factory.
Shout, and
Thank you.
Studio Canal in the UK.
There you go. It has both versions ready for you to watch, along with a load of supplementary materials and a fairly rare, apparently, Michael Mann commentary. But that's one on Heat,
it's so boring.
I don't mind those, though. The most boring, but it's not for this show, is Adrian Lynes, but it's also funny because it's almost as if he has no idea what's going on in his own film. He actually says, true. I haven't seen this in 25 years, and then goes on to prove that very...
Many moments of silence as well.
Yeah, this is my favorite comment. Indy... Alex wrote, "Do you see?"
That's my friend Ramon. That's the
Ramon.
I do see. I see you, Ramon.
I see.
That's great. I love that. 8-Track Go-Go mentioned that, but also mentioned the NBC version after Sounds of the Lamb was popular. And they retitled it for network broadcast. I think they may have called it Red Dragon. I'm not sure when it was the TV version.
They called it Red Dragon, and it had a subtitle to it. And I can't remember what the subtitle was. But they even added another little bit to the title just to kind of try and separate it out a little bit.
Red Dragon, not the movie Red Dragon, but this other thing that should have been called Red Dragon. Oh, Dino De Laurentiis. So Dino De Laurentiis plays a huge role in the I guess the type of film like this in Blue Velvet being made, because he had hired Lynch for Dune and they fought terribly on it. But then, as David Lynch said, he said, well, I still love Dino. And then Dino fully backed Blue Velvet, which is not the most commercial, obviously commercial choice. It turned out to be...
But ironically more successful than Dune because it's Lynch back doing what Lynch does best.
And then there was... on the print that New Bev had, it was an original release print. So there's a terrible Brian Brown looking film. I know, terrible looking Brian Brown film that is, the trailer is on the print at the beginning, and I can't remember what it's called. But
FX?
No, that'd be a good one. I'd like that.
I love FX. So much fun.
But I'll put that in the end because there's no need to look up another Brian Brown film. But it was a big budget flop. And then De Laurentiis kept gambling on various films, kind of like Canon, but of a higher level. And then Willam Friedkin did his serial killer movie, Rampage, which is the bleakest of all Friedkin films, if that tells you anything, which is now coming out on Blu-ray finally. And it didn't get released properly because DEG went out of business. They went bankrupt, and then Friedkin was in proper director jail because it was his film after To Live and Die in L.A., which finally got people thinking about him again. And so that was it for DEG. Rampage only got released about 7 years later when Miramax picked it up in a recut form. Philip Duke, our pal from Making Tarantino, the podcast, wrote, at one time I was working on a script/story idea where Clarice has to team up with Will Graham. Hannibal kills Will's son, and they have to follow the ingenious clues to find Hannibal. It would be cool if they had done something like that. Well, we can at least dream. And then, what do you think about that? Clarice and Will.
Feels like it'd be something they'd probably do in a TV series.
Yeah.
You'd kind of earn that. I think if it happened in a film, it might feel a bit like on the nose.
I just don't like that his son dies.
No. But, you know.
Yeah, no, I don't like that either.
Lord
I don't want
did
Kevin.
an Alien 3.
No, I
have to live with it.
I like that son.
I like Kevin.
Kill off all your favorite characters.
I believe that Graham would protect Kevin.
You would hope.
Yeah. No, he would. He would. And also, again, one of the most terrifying moments of the movie. And the way it's handled is great.
Oh, we're bashing on his idea. That's awful.
Well, no, Philip,
this is Hollywood.
Yeah, listen, that's how it is, Philip. It's brutal. He said he once was developing it.
He once was. He probably shelved it a long time ago.
Now he should develop as a TV series.
Yes.
Yeah, we gave him some constructive
Netflix,
feedback.
You know, I'm sure
they'll buy anything these days. No, I have to shout out Philip for his podcast is terrific. It's Making Tarantino, the podcast. It's basically every film that Quentin has cited as an influence or has mentioned.
He talks about it.
Yeah, exactly. And you've been on, right?
No, I've not been on, but I listened to it.
You're going to be on, yeah. And I was on. I was on.
I'm going to be on
so.
it.
Yes, you're going to be on it. You are going to be on it.
Just booked you onto the show.
And I might be doing Winter Kills on it. So I've never seen it. And
I will go on if I'm invited. Absolutely.
I saw Winter Kills many, many times, and I don't recommend seeing it in a theater.
I will not be watching it in the theater.
Because I feel like the movie is better on a smaller scale. And I love the movie.
Also, watch by yourself, not ruined by others.
Watch by yourself.
Powerhouse films indicate a release, if I recall.
All right, I'm going to have to get that. And then the only Ginger Snaps, hello, Ginger, wrote, in your opinion, who plays Dolarhyde the best? Noonan, or Ralph Fiennes, or Richard Armitage? Now, since I haven't seen Mr. Armitage and don't know what he looks like, I'm going to have to say Tom Noonan, because Ralph Fiennes is great, but hey.
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Armitage is very good in it.
Daniel Day-Lewis Friedkin.
I can't remember who it is in the Red Dragon version.
Bill Murray.
Bill Murray, of course, it's Bill Murray.
Hey, guys.
Ed Norton is Will Graham, if I recall.
Hey,
is it really Bill Murray?
Oh, I know it is. It's Ralph Fiennes.
Yeah.
Ralph Fiennes is the Tooth Fairy.
So
I thought you guys were being serious that it was Bill Murray.
No, I was just pulling a serious face. I was what they call bullshitting. Yeah. Well, because I can imagine.
I really believed you were going to turn up in those pink hot pants and the John Milius shirt.
Yes, because it would have been great.
It would have been great.
He's smoking a cigarette going, do you see? Yeah. Do you see?
Do you see?
Yeah.
Do you see?
It would have been great.
Yeah,
it would have been great.
I'm doing that next time then.
Well, you should have done it this time.
Yeah. Do you see? Yeah. Connor Coffer wrote, one of my favorite scenes in Manhunter, one that I think is a bit understated, is the scene where Will goes to the first crime scene with the tape recorder.
Oh, the writing is masterful in that scene.
It's so good when he's describing.
Yeah. I literally wrote in my notes, this writing is masterful.
Yeah. It is. Because the way also the delivery telegraphs all of the insanely grotesque stuff.
Yeah.
Also, when he turns the light switch on, you see this disgusting blood spray.
Splatter, the spray on the white.
Oh,
the perfect
so
white
incredible.
room.
And those moments that are dreamlike and keep like what they end, how that evolves in the TV series is just like works of art.
Yeah.
It's incredibly well done.
Oh,
they go more into the fantastical and the mythology and almost like you're looking at an old Baroque painting and proper. It's Bosch.
Yeah,
it's Bosch.
Oh, and then Connor also mentions how great Inagata Devita was as a choice, but says that those sporadic jump cunts. Excuse me.
What?
Never mind. Yeah, that's all right. The jump cunts. They were a late 70s band, kind of very agitprop.
Punk.
Anyway,
Punk.
are those? It says that those sporadic jump cuts were so cool, but they feel that they were an accident to cover up something in the I think they were deliberate.
I think it was deliberate. I think they are awesome. I don't think they're overused, and I think I would like to see more of that in future cinema. Because they do take out like a frame here or there to make punches feel really effective. But I don't know, I just like it adds to that kind of crazy quality of a fight scene. Another
great example of playing around with that kind of frame cutting. Phantom of the Paradise, Beef's electrocution scene.
Oh yeah, they do it there. It's so great.
Yeah, they swap the frames basically. It's like 4, and then they take the ones after it and put it before it. It's a really great technique. Damian Matthews wrote, I often wonder why it is that noir and horror, especially giallo, are usually the most stylish of films. Manhunter, and the best incarnations of cinematography, music, costume, the whole mood and tone are of the highest sophistication.
That's sometimes the link is that the directors sometimes come from a cinematography background. So that's like the first, like Bava is a good example of that. Cinematographer becomes a director and his eye is all about the colours again. It comes back to the colour palette, the heightened use of colour that, again, not touched upon this, but I'm sure we'll go into more detail in Fear City. The neo-noir lineage and the birth of neo-noir, again, goes back to Peeping Tom, Touch of Evil, kind of almost like shaking off the last remnants of classic noir. And Peeping Tom, the luridness, the Eastman colour.
I have to see that.
I love Eastman.
Colour,
you like Eastman pink, and I just gotta say,
almost. I think colour almost felt as though it was instantly by default lurid when it first appeared, and therefore, unless it was a big studio glossy movie, everything else, especially if it was a crime film, it was perfect.
Yeah,
show the blood. Yeah, it's perfect for the blood.
And show the lights. Yeah. So this is one of the last ones we'll do. And it says, isn't this a great example of it, though? Manhunter. Composer Michael Rubini's only important project before this was the score for The Hunger. Right? Probably the chicest American horror film ever made, of course, by Tony Scott after Ridley passed on it. Manhunter was cinematographer Dante Spinotti's first American film. And also he did the Berlin Affair beforehand, which is what got him the gig. So thank you very much, Damien. And before we close out,
I love Tony Scott. Just aside,
he's the only. Tony. I might watch Top Gun again just because of him. I saw it once in the '80s and I hated it.
Oh, I
watch it
it's
again.
good fun.
Watch it again.
Yeah. It's good fun.
Had fun.
And Top Gun Maverick, that's one of the best times in the cinema in years.
Oh my god! We took my dad to go see it. We took my dad to go see it for his birthday, and he thought it was out of theaters by the time we were taking him to the theater, so he didn't know what we were going to go see.
Wow.
And when we drove to the parking lot, he said, "Oh my god, we're going to a movie." And I said, "Yeah, we're going to a movie." My whole family was with us, and he said, "Oh my god, like, what are we going to go see? Top Gun?" And we said, "Yes." My dad started crying. Because he was so happy to go see Top Gun. We had the best time. It was an amazing theater experience.
It's one of the most incredible experiences in the cinema I've had within the last 10 years.
It's amazing. It was an amazing.
It's game changing.
Wow.
I hope it comes back to the movie theaters.
Like, it's not flipping Dostoevsky, but it's
better. It's better.
But you go and watch this Tom Cruise doing what he does best.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Unbelievable.
So he jumps up on couches and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I won't spoil it for you.
It's all right.
I'm spoiling it. Yeah.
Okay, so two more. Philip Duke back again from the Making Tarantino podcast. Actually, Philip is who inspired me to post about leaving comments and questions in the Instagram and in the Video Archives podcast fans page. Man. So Philip wrote, "This is peak Man. So moody, so good, and the acting in it is top notch. We all agree. Brian Cox is great, especially when he makes the phone call from his cell." 6602. Dave Brock writes, "Perfectly cast. Some of these are repeat. Wasn't able to collate them." Dave Brock mentions the tiger scene and the lovemaking sequence.
I love that moment.
That moment is so good.
The whole thing with her. The whole entire sequence, like all of the scenes with her, are my favorite part of the movie.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That moment, though, when he's on the phone, not my favorite part of the movie, actually. Like, the first time I watched it, I was like, I don't like this part.
What I really liked is how he uses different accents, and he's just... he has an ease of use with manipulating people. That just slide your finger down all the way to G, and then when she gives him the FBI address, he says, I'm sure the home address is. They're also using the premise that he needs to get something to FedEx. It's great because people just go, yeah, of course.
The psychology book that he has on his desk right then.
Oh, what?
I think it's on his desk right then. He just reads off the title, and he's like, I just have to do this.
So, folks, I think I'm just going to check. Actually, wait 1 sec. You guys are like, no, please stop.
I know Eric has one in there somewhere.
I know. I want to find Eric. That's the thing.
I think it's on Facebook.
Oh, okay. Then I have it. I got everything Facebook. You want Facebook? Come to me. Shit, where is Eric's?
Eric, I will answer your question in DMs later.
Yeah, well, also, Gala's going to come back to do...
I have to come back to this place.
Yes, you got to come back. That's how I lure you back with Eric's comments.
I will literally answer Eric's question while Eric is here.
Wait, hold on. Do I have it
next to me?
No, I don't. Yes, that's right. Actually, we could do that.
Yeah.
I can just cut it in there.
I'm sure this will come out before then, though.
Yeah, that's the problem. Let's see if I can sign in on my
No,
computer.
it's okay.
Okay,
it's okay.
All right. You're like, no, please.
I was like,
you're like, please. I'm trying to make this.
Eric's question doesn't matter that much.
I got to cut this part out, lest people think you don't want to be here, because you do.
No, I'm kidding. I love this couch, Craig.
I know, and that's what keeps you coming back.
Where all the people have sat.
That's right, all the people, and you're not in your seat. You gave it up to Rich very graciously. Now, everyone, where can you be found on the social medias?
You can find me at Rich Pieces, as in bits and pieces. You can find me on my website, which is richpieces.com. Yeah, you'll find everything on there. Essays galore.
Not just bits and pieces.
The odd little thing on there. There's the odd interview and other shows I've been on.
Yeah.
That's the best place to go.
You can find me taking long walks on the beach or eating a pad thai. And in the virtual world, you can find me on my Instagram, Gala Avary, that's Avary, or on the Video Archives podcast, season 1, while we're trying to hopefully do season 2.
Please do.
I know, hopefully, one day, eventually.
Yes.
And also at my weekly interview series, The Gala Show, where I have a new person on the mic every week. And I had Craig on for not my very first episode aired, but I had...
Come on, your show.
Please,
Well, after you do the Making Tarantino podcast, I guess.
No, I just interviewed Rich, and hopefully I'll time this with the one that I have with Rich, where we talk about...
Why not?
What are we
Everybody gets a double dose of me.
Monsters.
Yeah. Don't spoil it. Keep it a secret.
Yeah.
Just leave that out.
Yeah. I'll do that. And I have to say this now so I can bleep this deep dive. Yeah. I actually mentioned I'm going to bleep that on the Crimes of Passion. Forgot to put the bleep in. And I'm like, I should go back to that. I don't have enough time.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's a fake out. Anyway, to fake you out, it's not over yet. No.
And you can find me on Craig's couch.
Yes, that's right. And you find me, of course, at Craig and Friends, or you're listening to this or watching this already, so you know what to do. Do you see? So, thank you very much, Gala. Thank you very much, Rich.
You're welcome. Take care, everyone.
Yes, take care. And I'm sorry this was such an abbreviated show. There just wasn't enough to talk about.
This is Michael Mann epic.
The Manhunter.
It's apt.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, Craig, for having us on.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.